to move out and off of the 101 freeway, get out of this little logjam. That is not everybody who is stuck. That is just the front, maybe 20 or 30 cars who are, some of them are being allowed and some of them are not. It looks like some decision making to go in the crowd there. We will see how this plays out. There is a group of officers just behind these cars who are going to, I think, wait until the cars that are being allowed to clear the way off the freeway, and then we will see how they plan to get these demonstrators off the surface of the 101 freeway, because they have now shut down traffic for some time now, and those officers now headed the other way. Curious to see what the plan is going to be, Bruce. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you know, Jory, one of the things that always is mind-boggling to me is with the advent of social media, I'm hoping they're putting out things, stay away from the Hollywood freeway, stay away from Alameda, stay away from downtown LA. I would hope this is happening, but yet we see hundreds of cars driving down the street.
Yeah. Hopefully traffic apps can help people as well, that you do not want to go through this area. If you can avoid downtown, surface streets and the freeway, avoid it if you can, because it is going to be a slog to get through, and it's going to take some time. Back at the Roybal, this is the intersection of Temple and Alameda. The crowd continues to be in the midst of this, in the middle of this intersection. We do see that bike. I think there were two motorcycles down on the line. That one remains down on the ground. I think they tried to drag one away. I did not see how these vehicles made their way into this position, but that is a motorcycle. Bruce, I don't think that's a law enforcement motorcycle, right? That's not CHP.
No, it was somebody's personal bike.
Yeah.
They took the driver into custody and the bike was left there.
Right. So now we see Alameda is blocked off if you're coming towards the view of this camera. Temple is blocked off to the left. And then if you travel up, Alameda is where the view from Air 7 is now looking, the overpass of the 101 freeway. I don't see those officers on foot on the freeway as of right now, but it looks like traffic is still being held up. So the last few cars,
You may get a little excited when you shop at Burlington.
side of your screen here, looking at two different locations, one at the 101 freeway, one back at the Federal building. Gabe, what are you seeing right now?
Well, Dre, we're just getting overhead back on the freeway side, and I've been watching the pictures from our second Air 7 along with you guys, but also monitoring the radio traffic from LAPD and CHP. We have quite a multi-pronged situation here. You have the skirmish line near the Federal building that LAPD has been working, and you have the situation on the freeway, which now CHP is getting involved in, and CHP is helping out with, because you have this crowd on the freeway, on the, I believe those are the southbound.
You're walking on the freeway.
Southbound lanes of the 101, and you have this large crowd now on the freeway. In total, LAPD is saying that at least the immediate size of the crowd here is about 3,000 people. So you have that situation. And if Rob whites out the shot and goes to Alameda and Temple a little further down, that's where our other news.
Okay, so we shift feeds here. Look at this.
You gotta have a face mask on.
And a lot of protesters cleared out when they saw that first flow of CHP officers come through and approach them, and then we've kind of lost sight of them. I'm not sure if they're under the bridge or if they have we're going to do a orbit here in Air 7 HD and actually look for where that crowd of that initial first push of CHP officers went to see where they have ended up now, or if they've actually retreated. So we're going to look for them, and we're going to monitor what happens here now that this protest has made its way onto the 101 freeway near
Protest?
Alameda.
Yeah, I saw those officers clearing the motorcycles. I wonder if we can go back and check our tapes to see if we got the incident itself of how those bikes made their way into that situation. Because again, as Gabe just said, there are reports that officers were injured in that incident, driving those motorcycles into the skirmish lines with those LAPD law enforcement officers. And so we'll wait and work to see if we have that. Again, this is all playing out as there is a battle brewing between the state governor of California and the president of the United States. Last night, President Trump federalized 2,000 members of the California National Guard. Today, the governor sent official notice that he wants to regain control of those soldiers. So there is now a direct confrontation between the state and the federal government. That, I think, is rather unusual. I'm not sure something like that has ever played out, although our history is deep here in America, and it certainly could have happened. We referenced the civil rights era when John F. Kennedy had to federalize troops to go into the South with governors there, George Wallace and others who were not following federal law. But I don't know if it's played out exactly in the way that we have seen here at the direct opposition of a governor. We will see what happens with that request. As we approach the top of the hour, we want to reset here. You're watching Eyewitness News here on ABC7. We were scheduled to finish our broadcast at 4 o'clock, but situation on the ground in downtown Los Angeles has warranted our continuing coverage of unrest in downtown LA. This is day number 3 of civil unrest, protest, demonstration, and confrontation between those demonstrators and members of the federal government and local law enforcement who have taken to the streets in direct opposition to ICE raids and the handling of immigrants by the Trump administration. We are going to stay with you on air here for the time being to see how this plays out, but demonstrators are now on the 101 freeway. That's the shot from Air 7. On the left side of your screen is the southbound side of the 101, taken over by demonstrators on the road surface. The right side is the 101 northbound, which is once again flowing. It had been shut down several times this afternoon, but the northbound side is moving again. It looks like at the top there might be some cars who are working to turn around. I saw some vehicles facing kind of sideways on the 101 a little further. This is an overpass overlooking all of this where a large crowd has gathered. There have been several focal points today, one outside the federal building, where we have seen confrontation and unrest for the last 2 days here in LA. At the Roybal Federal Detention Facility, there was confrontation yet again today, this time for the first time with National Guard soldiers guarding the entrance to the facility, at one point with riot shields in place, pushing that crowd back. LAPD officers were called in, and they have now cleared that section of Alameda from the opening, the entrance to the detention facility.
They took the entire freeway over.
Has been cordoned off to the intersection of Temple and Alameda. This is another large crowd that is on the overpass looking over the 101 freeway as they see demonstrators down on the road surface below. Things have been tense. We saw large demonstrations yesterday as well in the cities of Paramount and Compton, and again last night at the detention facility at the entrance, though things were a bit calmer for a time period. On the right, we see more people making their way down the on-ramp and onto the surface of the 101 freeway. We've been waiting to see how the LAPD, how the CHP plans to handle this situation. As of right now, it looks like the demonstrators pretty much have free reign on the southbound side, being left unchecked and gathering, their numbers now growing on the surface. And we see a large crowd up above and around watching what happens. This is not a first for downtown Los Angeles. This happens actually rather frequently. When we see a large demonstration of this size and intensity, they often make their way onto the 101, and it has happened yet again today. At the bottom of your screen, you can see the roof of City Hall. That is where another demonstration began at 2 o'clock today. We saw 1,000 people gathered in Gloria Molina Grand Park and the street passing through there. They made their way down the street 2 blocks to the Federal Center, where they joined the other crowd demonstrating there. Our focal point, you can use that building under construction as a reference point. This is Temple and Alameda here. The crowd has still maintained their presence with that line of officers who have now blocked off both Temple and Alameda, heading back up towards the federal building. We will see how this plays out. We have cameras on the ground as well as 2 in the air. There is the motorcycle in question. Gabe Santos, who is in Air 7, which we'll go back to in just momentarily, has said that he heard that 2 officers were injured due to that motorcycle, and a second, which has subsequently been dragged from the scene. It might still be somewhere out there. Gabe, I'm not sure if you can have eyes on it, if that is the bike in question, but there were 2 and officers were injured.
Yeah, Jory, it was those 2 bikes that we were just looking at that are on the ground, and we did hear from earlier reports from LAPD that those 2 bikes actually drove towards the skirmish line and then fell down, and those bikes hit officers. Officers were trying to make careful use of my words here, but
drive a bike with the
LAPD radio traffic did allude to the fact that those officers were injured and they were treated at the scene by EMTs who are part of LAPD that were already here. So they were treated and they remain at the scene and they have been stabilized at this time. So we don't have an exact number exactly of how many officers were hit, but we do know that a few of them actually were hit by 2 motorcycles from the outside. So not law enforcement motorcycles. These were, we can go out on a limb here and say protester motorcycles drove into the skirmish line of LAPD and it caused injury to a couple, at least, officers here in the downtown area.
Yeah, and again, I don't think this was, people have in their mind of someone driving a motorcycle into a crowd. I don't think that's what happened here. I think the motorcycle, again, we're looking for tape because we saw the aftermath of those motorcycles being dragged away from the scene, but I'm not sure if we have actual video of the incident itself. This was not, I believe, a high-speed movement with those motorcycles as we see those officers now moving in on the 101. We see some cruisers, that is highway patrol, and some officers in tactical gear moving in to try and retake control of the freeway. There were cars that were allowed to be make their way through and exit the area. There are still some vehicles who are stuck now behind all of this as those officers now make their way through to a rallying point, a gathering point to figure out what their plan is. And cars are now traveling backwards, it looks like, up the 101 southbound, the wrong direction. This might just be have no intention of being part of this situation, being forced to deal with it because they are just simply driving down the 101 freeway and dragged into this situation. Again, you see someone with a small child in the back seat. This can be a really scary situation. You don't know how these are going to play out. I don't know if we have Bruce Thomas still on the line, but these can be very scary situations when you're talking about civilians stuck in these situations. That was a woman with a small child in the back seat, now stuck on the 101 with an angry group of demonstrators on the overpass and the surface itself, and law enforcement trying to regain control, Bruce.
Yeah, Jory, it creates a huge problem. You have innocent people in vehicles, some with kids, maybe a medical emergency with a child of some sort, and then they want to get out of there, but they can't. So that's what law enforcement's going to do. They're going to open up this freeway, basically shut down the area, get everybody out of there, and then retake this freeway. I think CHP, just by the sheer numbers, has said, you know what, this is not acceptable anymore.
Yeah, and it looks like they are now going to move in, but a decent number of people have now gathered on the freeway. Those officers are going to be outnumbered. We'll see. It looks like some of the leaders of this group are out front kind of rallying their troops as the officers are going to emerge at some point from beneath this. We see some already in tactical gear lining the kind of the entrance to this underpass here, and with some reinforcements coming in from behind them. We'll see what they plan to do, whether they're going to form a skirmish line here and start backing these people up and back them up the on-ramp the way we've seen them be pushed back from the entrance to the federal building today. Again, we have several locations around downtown Los Angeles that have been taken over by demonstrators.
I haven't been to the grocery store in over a year, but I'm eating healthier than ever. Here's how I did it. Meal planning used to be such
objects, and again, 2 motorcycles driven into that skirmish line, and we've heard 2 officers were injured as well. We're awaiting word on their status and how they are doing and what happened to those who drove those motorcycles or pushed or somehow got those bikes into this situation, how that happened, and what ensued. On the right side of your screen, we have a live look from the ground of what is playing out on the surface of the 101 freeway. We can see those officers in shadow. We know they are under the overpass there. They have a view that we cannot get from Air 7, and so this is a really good look from 2 different angles of what is happening on the 101. A lot of police vehicles in the background, CHP gathering. We have officers in the surrounding streets as well as they try to maintain order in what has been a day filled with disorder from citizens of Los Angeles and around who once again have brought themselves out to the streets en masse to protest against the actions of President Trump and his departments, Homeland Security and ICE. We are at a bit of an impasse here. We're waiting movement from one of these 2 sides, the California Highway Patrol, those officers gathered there. We will see what they attempt to do. For the most part, the demonstrators have just been allowed to remain on the 101 freeway and shut down traffic. The northbound side had been interrupted several times. That is now flowing, although a little bit slower, as you can imagine. When you're driving through downtown and you see people standing on the freeway on the other side, it's going to slow you down a bit. But there are no, looks like no people walking on the northbound side. That is now entirely relegated to the southbound side, and a lot of people watching what's happening here. Again, as we said, this is not the only location where people are gathering. There is another group outside the federal building, just a short ways away from this gathering at Temple and Alameda. National Guard soldiers had been guarding that building this morning. They had been aided by some LAPD officers who had joined the line there. And then it was the LAPD, in fact, that began moving those people back. Once a tactical alert was initiated in the city of Los Angeles, the LAPD moved in and wanted to get them away from the federal building, and that has now happened, but people still remain on the streets. Again, as we mentioned, this is all playing out with a battle going on between the federal government and now the state of California. Governor Newsom said last night that President Trump, against his wishes, federalized 2,000 members of the California National Guard. Well, he has now officially sent notice to the federal government that he wants to regain control of his soldiers from the National Guard. In fact, there is a group now of Democratic governors, 22 governors from the United States have now put out a statement, and I'll read it now if nothing else happens while we're waiting movement on the 101. It reads, President Trump's move to deploy California's National Guard is an alarming abuse of power. Governors are the commanders-in-chief of their National Guard, and the federal government activating them in their own borders without consulting or working with the state's governor is ineffective and dangerous. Further, threatening to send the U.S. Marines into American neighborhoods undermines the mission of our service members, erodes public trust, and shows the Trump administration does not trust local law enforcement. This statement continues. It's important we respect the executive authority of our country's governors to manage their National Guards, and we stand with Governor Newsom, who has made it clear that violence is unacceptable and that local authorities should be able to do their jobs without the chaos of this federal interference and intimidation. Again, that is from a group of Democratic governors from 22 states backing Governor Newsom from California when it comes to President Trump taking over the California National Guard, 2,000 troops who were federalized last night. We see some movement here on the 101 freeway. It looks like people are beginning to move away from those officers. I don't know if they are beginning to make their way in. Gabe Santos is overhead watching this all play out from Air 7. Gabe, what are you seeing from up there?
Well, you have these very dynamic ends of this protest and this crowd. You have this bridge here, I believe that's the Alameda Bridge at the top of your screen, over the 101 freeway, and you have a lot of CHP, a contingent of CHP that keeps on piling up and adding to the reinforcements or bringing in reinforcements to that skirmish line that's under that bridge. That's actually the Los Angeles Street Bridge, to have a correction for you there. And I'm seeing about maybe 20 CHP cars lined up on the southbound 101. Also, a little side note here, we have a Black Hawk helicopter from the Department of Homeland Security also orbiting the area. We saw a similar helicopter, if not the same one, working the scene yesterday in Paramount. So that helicopter may be being brought in to bring in additional resources here. In any event, back on the freeway, you have a number of CHP resources pouring in, a lot of calls for help being made initially by LAPD. LAPD was initially requested to help with the freeway situation here as they saw the crowd move towards the freeway, and LAPD noted that they don't have anybody to spare. They've already asked all additional resources to report to the scene in front of the federal building where Alameda and Temple cross. And that's where we saw that situation with the motorcycles. We're still waiting a little more detail on what happened there, but the word, at least from officers on the ground, is that those motorcycles were driven into that skirmish line. As you mentioned, we don't know what speed. We don't know whether or not they plowed into the skirmish line or anything like that. It doesn't appear to be so, because it appears that whatever injuries were suffered by those officers in the skirmish line, they appear to be mild, if not moderate, at most. They were treated at the scene, and they are what we've heard as in stable condition now. And we don't know a specific number of officers, but it does appear to be more than 2. So that's the situation there. Back on the freeway, you have a different department. So you have LAPD working the surface streets, and now CHP working the freeway now, and they're bringing in a lot of additional resources. As I mentioned, about 20 cars, 20 CHP cars already backed up behind the traffic that had initially been stuck here. You have some people being lucky enough to turn around and go the wrong way on the freeway and get off that way. But looking out the window of Air 7, I can see that the 101 South is shut down at the 110, and they're forcing everybody onto the interchange to get onto the 110, either in the north or the southbound lanes. You can see that CHP blockade there. They even have cones down now, which gives the indication that this is going to be a long-term closure, which I think, considering everything that we've seen here today, that's probably safe to be assumed. And there you can see the number of CHP units that have kind of made camp there under the Main Street bridge here. And now you have that contingent of CHP units, CHP special enforcement units under the Los Angeles Street bridge, at least making themselves known to these protesters, probably making verbal commands out, giving the order to get off the freeway. And obviously you could see here by the static situation that we're starting to see. And now another flow or so of people making their way down the street. That looks to be a sign with that a couple of other protesters are holding there. And just from what we've seen here in the past few minutes, it appears to be kind of a ebb and flow of people that kind of flow onto the freeway, and then another influx of CHP officers will come in, kind of scare a few people off the freeway, and then things will calm down for a little bit, and in those calm moments, more people will kind of flood back into the freeway. But at least at this point, you just have the southbound lanes of the 101 closed right now due to this protest, and the northbound lanes are still open right now. But a lot of CHP units making their way into the area, and LAPD units as well, as Rob, our photographer, swings the camera over to the right, so you can see this Black Hawk helicopter that we believe belongs to Department of Homeland Security, that is here now to assist in the operations that a lot of government agencies are involved in here in the downtown area.
Yeah, we actually saw Black Hawk unloading materials to their DHS facility in Paramount yesterday. Weaponry, ammunition. We saw rifle boxes and canisters of flammable materials being unloaded off of the Black Hawk yesterday down in Paramount. This is going to come to a head at some point. Those CHP officers on the freeway are going to make a move. It's just a matter of when, once they have the proper number of reinforcements in place.
How are they going to make a move?
And we will see what happens, whether these people decide to go without a fight or whether there's going to be a problem that plays out on the surface of the 101. We surely hope that that is not the case. We do know that the LAPD's Central Division put out a post. They said 2 people riding motorcycles attempted to breach a skirmish line at Alameda and Temple. 2 officers were injured after being hit by the motorcyclists. Both riders have been detained. Officers are being treated at scene by medical personnel. So if they're being treated on scene, they likely weren't injured too badly, as Gabe reported, and that will continue to play out. We also are expected to hear from LA Mayor Karen Bass in just about 12 minutes. I think at
Oh,
about 4:30,
fast.
the mayor is expected to hold a press conference.
Fast.
We spoke to her live on the air last night at 11
Oh,
o'clock, and she
Karen
said
Bass, press
she disagrees
conference.
with the federalization of California troops, although she did say she was willing and ready to work with people like the border czar, Tom Homan, who has said some inflammatory things in the past. He went on Fox News yesterday saying that LA Mayor Karen Bass should thank him for making her city safer with these ICE raids. Okay, on the ground covering this all, in the thick of it, has been ABC News' Matt Gutman. We want to go to him right now, who has been outside the detention facility, the federal building,
Mayor
all
Bass is
afternoon.
gonna be
Matt, what can you
speaking.
tell us?
Fast.
Hey, Jory, I mean, we just heard that mention of that skirmish here, and at least one motorcycle, possibly a second, we actually physically saw it breaking through that skirmish line. It's unclear if that motorcyclist was just trying to do a wheelie, like turning around, and lost control of the motorcycle, or if it was intentional. But several of those people who have been detained are right there behind us. Unclear what and whether they will be charged with any crime, but you can see this is what it's looked like for the past, I'd say, an hour or so. That line of officers from the LAPD pushing everybody back and using a tremendous amount of non-lethal force. You can see those flashbang canisters, the sponges, 40 millimeter like this, that they've fired at people just to continue to push them back. I don't think I've seen this much use of non-lethal in a very long time. We've also seen significant number of rocks, bottles, projectiles that are very dangerous being hurled at the LAPD on this side of the skirmish line. Right now it's at stalemate, Jerry, but there is something I just want to show you. Is like, that police skirmish line that you saw behind me started probably 400 yards back, almost at the 101. And I don't know if you can see, but the amount of debris and how far it goes back, all of what you're seeing was either thrown by protesters or fired by the LAPD. So really a significant interaction here. And obviously, as you saw from the hundreds of protesters that are still here, it's probably not going to end anytime soon, Jory.
Yeah, we watched that line be pushed back down Alameda and saw a near constant volley of those non-lethals at protesters. We watched all afternoon those federalized National Guardsmen and women guarding the entrance to the federal building. Are they still there? Can you tell if they're still on scene from your vantage point?
I believe that they are. The last time when we got pushed back, they were here. I would be shocked if they left. So, you know, it was federal law enforcement plus California National Guard. I would say a pretty fair mix. One of the things that surprised me, Jory, that I hadn't seen in a while was right front and center on the second story near the shrubbery was a sniper. It looked like a federal law enforcement officer, but a sniper was right there. So far, I mean, at that point, it seemed like a very peaceful demonstration. Law enforcement had deployed some sort of less than lethal, perhaps some pepper spray, and certainly some flashbangs. But what happened here was a step above. That was different. We saw some really significant physical interactions between the LAPD and these protesters. The size of the rocks and projectiles, I'm going to see if I can try to find another one for you, that were thrown were significant. This is a piece of concrete or road that was picked up and chucked. You can see some of the sharper end stones over here, much larger ones than that were hurled at police. So this is something that I haven't seen quite some time in downtown LA. It was very intense, much more calm at the moment. But what's unclear right now, Jory, is how this thing ends.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Thanks. You've covered a lot of these. You know them pretty well. When you say that it's something that you haven't seen before, that is certainly saying something. And we have said that these officers and these vehicles have been under assault.
I don't know if I just lost you on the...
Yeah, that is not overstating the case. Matt Gutman from ABC News on the ground, and we appreciate his reports, and we'll continue to check in with what he is seeing down there on the ground as much as we can. Again, we say these officers are under assault, under attack. That is accurate. Every time we see a vehicle move in, reinforcements be moved in, they are assaulted. They are have projectiles thrown at them. We saw the back window of a Chevy Suburban shattered on live television as they were moving in to that scene. Back to the 101 freeway, just a short distance from where Matt is doing that reporting.
They got the entire
we see that crowd continues
southbound
to maintain their position on the southbound 101 freeway. it looks like there are some people now on the northbound side. One or two people have jumped the barrier and are now on the northbound side, which I think has now been shut down. Let's go to Gabe Santos in Air 7. Gabe, we see no vehicular traffic on the northbound.
What's
it looks
going
like
on?
those
Oh, they're
officers,
shooting something.
CHP might be
They're
moving in right now on the southbound side as
pepper
well.
spray, pepper bombs.
Yeah,
Look,
well, it
Here
looks
they
like
come.
two things happened here. You had CHP move in on the other side. You have flashbang grenades going off.
Flashbang.
Possible other less than lethal fire going off right now. It looks like tear gas canisters as well. But as far as the freeway is concerned, I'm not sure what happened first. If there were individuals that made their way onto the northbound lanes of the 101, or if CHP actually blocks traffic on the 101 first, because I see a little further back, we don't have to zoom in on it right now, but a little further back on the 101's, on the, if we go a little south from here, there's a CHP unit that's actually blocking traffic right near an exit. So it's directing traffic to get off the freeway a little bit further back. And then,
turned around
so
and going,
Rob, our photographer, swung the camera back.
Yeah,
turning
turn
right
around.
going
But
the
you
other
also
way.
saw,
look at this. They're turning
you
around.
also saw under the Los Angeles Street Bridge, those CHP units are spanning now both sides of the freeway. So you have CHP officers in SWAT gear on both sides of the freeway, and you had for a time some protesters climb the barrier there and get on those other lanes, but then it looks like they've now cleared and kept themselves to one side of traffic. So I'm not sure if that was an intentional decision on CHP to shut down both lanes of traffic. Going out on a limb here, I would imagine that's because CHP eventually, when they do decide to make a move and possibly move forward on these protesters and get them to get off the freeway, they don't want the danger of anybody jumping onto the other side and getting hit by a car. So that may be the tactic that CHP is using in terms of blocking both sides of the freeway now to get their officers on both sides of the freeway and maybe make a move here to clear the freeway.
Yeah, 100%. You don't want your officers at risk of vehicular traffic when you make your move. If we still have Bruce Thomas on the line, I do want to ask him, we see this group of CHP officers gathered beneath the overpass. I obviously think it's, I think I know why, but if Bruce could just talk about whether that's, they are under there gathering to protect themselves from the crowd that is watching from above and the side so they don't get hit by anything from above.
Yeah, you're 100% right. They're seeking shelter underneath the freeway until they decide they want to move forward. Because one of the biggest concerns is you have people on the overpass, which we've seen them throwing objects at law enforcement. So they do want to protect themselves because all they have to protect themselves is a riot helmet with a face shield. So I'm sure there are some people on an overwatch situation.
Yeah. So here we have two groups, and you think about, as we see this confrontation set to take place, the backgrounds of both of these groups. You have demonstrators who feel like law enforcement has invaded their community and taken away members of their community, sometimes members of their family. And on the other side, you have law enforcement who likely got into this profession to help people, keep them safe, and suddenly find themselves at odds and doing their job with the people they are tasked with protecting. It's a tough situation. You understand the motivations from both sides, but again, you hope we're not pitting citizens of our city against each other, but here we are. The LAPD, CHP, local law enforcement is tasked with maintaining peace and order. And here, once again, on the streets of Los Angeles and the freeways moving through Los Angeles, we have disorder and unrest as demonstrations have now stretched into day 3 in Los Angeles. All of it against the movements of ICE and DHS and the Trump administration against the immigrant community here in Los Angeles and Southern California. We saw unrest in San Diego this weekend. We saw unrest in Washington, D.C., in New York City. This is happening across the country as President Trump is trying to fulfill his promise to go after those in this country illegally. Some in his administration say they are going after the dangerous elements, those who have committed crimes, those who pose a threat, who are violent, who are members of gangs. I think it's safe to say everyone in society wants to see those people gone, not on the streets in any, whether they're immigrants or not. We don't want violent gang members. Nobody does. The criticisms that have come is that people who are not violent have been swept up in this. There are people who are residents legal residents of the United States who have been swept up in this. There are citizens of the United States who have been swept up in this. Some of them sent out of the country to supermax prisons overseas and struggling to get back. And so there is this push-pull. There are people in the administration, Stephen Miller, chief among them, who have said they want to see every single person in this country without permission to be taken out, and they do so with violent warlike tactics, moving in with weapons of war against people we saw in the garment district this weekend in Los Angeles, from day laborers at Home Depot. And so there are, you know, it's never as clear cut as just simply people are committing crimes and we take them out of this country. It's the methods, it's who you're targeting. And that is where a lot of this ire has been drawn by some of these demonstrators. But again, even in California and Los Angeles, elected officials are saying we do not condone violence. We heard that from Mayor Bass. We hear that now from Governor Newsom. We hear that from members of Congress and elected officials and law enforcement. Nobody is condoning the violence or the assaults on officials, be it local or federal. And that is where some of these problems have been arising over the last 3 days, as this is now, again, day 3 of unrest in Los Angeles. ICE, through a spokesperson, has put out a statement today. I'm going to read it to you here. It is long, but I'll read you the initial statement. It says, quote, irresponsible politicians continue to push dangerous and misleading rhetoric that puts communities and law enforcement at risk. Even the LAPD referred to violent riots yesterday as, quote, peaceful protests. It continues, Americans can look at the videos and images and see with their own eyes that they are dangerous, not peaceful. It continues, ICE and its federal partners are doing their job, enforcing immigration law and removing criminal aliens from Los Angeles communities. We have arrested a domestic abuser who assaulted someone with a firearm and a child rapist. In defense of these heinous criminals, masked rioters have made it their mission to injure and maim federal law enforcement officials. Make no mistake, rioters committing crimes will be arrested and held accountable.
Look at
Let's
this.
go back to the situation.
Oh, they took his
freeway.
scooter.
It looks like the scooter that one person
They
had
took
been
the
using
scooter.
to ride up and down, kind of taunting that line of CHP officers in tactical gear, has now been taken into custody. The scooter was just dragged out of the way, and that person is now face down on the pavement being placed into handcuffs. The rest of the crowd, this is on the northbound side. This is where this group of officers is lining up and moving their way down. And you can see some folks on the other side, the demonstrators lining up in front of the Jersey barrier, confronting them as well. There's a large crowd behind them, and vehicular traffic does appear to be moving on. No, that is the side street. My apologies. That is up above. I believe Aliso.
Now they still got it closed down.
Freeway. But here we go. So officers
Flashes
from the
right
CHP
now
are now
on
moving
the
in.
101.
There is now officially a skirmish line on the southbound 101 freeway,
101.
and they want to get these demonstrators off the freeway surface. It appears as if they don't have to exert much pressure on these officers, on these demonstrators, as they are backing up. Unhappily, it seems, we see one gentleman there in black who is shouting at them, or woman, demonstrator in black who is shouting at them, going back and forth, very agitated, very animated. But that group is now slowly backing up. They are going to be have to be turned around, backed up, and turned around to go back up the on-ramp to get them off the surface of the 101. Gabe Santos is viewing all this from Air 7. Let's go back up to Air 7 and see what you're seeing from up there, Gabe.
There's more and more people up on the 101.
luxury of having this airborne view of this situation. You can really kind of see what CHP is trying to do. They have made a coordinated attempt of shutting down both sides of the freeway. And as more resources got onto the scene, they have a call out to all of CHP, basically. So they're sending anybody and everybody that is available to come to the downtown area and help quell the scene here now that it has spilled onto the freeway. So CHP now, they have closed both sides of the 101 freeway at Los Angeles Street, and we saw that line of officers start to make their way down the southbound lanes of the 101. And it looks as if they are trying to make a circle, or at least a semicircle, around some of these protesters so that they are not just pushing them back and pushing them further up down the freeway.
try to
They're
box
trying to
them
get
in.
these people off of the freeway. And you even saw somebody on a scooter that was possibly taunting officers that eventually maybe got a little too close to an officer or maybe came close to striking an officer with that scooter. They were immediately taken into custody. So CHP not taking any chances with anybody, and they are slowly and methodically pushing these protesters. The idea is off the freeway as more resources get to the scene here. And we're going to see that start to develop, as you see right there. Groups of about 10 or so CHP officers in full riot gear moving down. Those are going to be the northbound lanes of the 101 freeway, and they're making this line around the group of protesters that we see there. And then slowly and methodically, you see this line of officers on the northbound side. Excuse me, those are the southbound lanes, but those protesters are facing north.
This is crazy,
you see those
folks.
officers there very slowly and methodically pushing that line of protesters, hopefully off the freeway and onto surface streets.
Yeah, thank you, Gabe. Let's bring back in Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert. It seems like they are just taking one step at a time, Bruce, slowly pushing back on this group of demonstrators.
more people
I don't
are coming
think they want to
on.
start anything, get too violent, go too fast. They are slowly, methodically making their way to clear the surface. We saw yet another flashbang go off above this crowd. But talk to me about what the mindset is of these CHP officers as they are now face to face with these demonstrators. They want to get them off the surface, but they don't want to start any violent confrontation.
You're 100% correct, Jory. What they're doing is they're negotiating. Look, you made your point. We've got to open this freeway up. We're going to use a skirmish line to slowly, very slowly, push you back off the freeway. We don't want to use force. We don't want to take anybody to jail, but we want you to comply with our request.
Yeah, and it does seem to be effective right now. We have not seen the necessity for batons. We see some pushback here. It looks like some folks are just kind of dead weighting their bodies up against this crowd, forcing those officers to push them back.
Look at this.
But they are moving back. They are locked arms now, arm in arm, and don't want to be removed, but they are slowly pushing back. So the officers will take a couple steps, gain that line, reset, move forward again, and hopefully they don't want to start any major confrontation here. Again, all of this is playing out on the streets of Los Angeles. We are awaiting word from the mayor of this city. Karen Bass is set to address her city any moment now. We were told around 4:30 was the time to get ready for her to speak. We have not heard from her as of yet, but we are awaiting word from the mayor, again, excuse me, in direct confrontation with the federal government. President Trump kind of name-checked her personally last night on his Truth Social outlet, his social media outlet, writing, this is last night, if Governor Gavin Newsom, that's a favorite of the president to write it that way, of California, and Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles can't do their jobs, which everyone knows they can't, then the federal government will step in and solve the problem. Riots and looters, the way it should be solved. So he's saying the problem was riots and looters. Said it will be solved the way it should be solved. He was also recorded on camera today at a press briefing being asked about a couple things with what's playing out here. Rules of engagement for the National Guards members who are now federalized under his control on the streets of Los Angeles, what their rules of engagement. They're carrying around, these soldiers can be inserted into war, and so they're carrying the weaponry as such against citizens of Los Angeles. What the rules would be for them to employ those deadly means. The president just said, we want to keep peace. He was asked about the proclamation that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth put onto social media, saying if the violence continued, then members of the U.S. Marines would be deployed against U.S. citizens. That can only happen under use of the Insurrection Act. And the president today was asked what would be deemed an insurrection, and he neglected to answer specifically. So here we go. It looks like a smoke bomb thrown on the surface of the 101. And let's go back up to Gabe. Those demonstrators now kicking that smoke bomb back towards the officers. It's like a macabre game of soccer with this thing right now. But they are making a move trying to get these folks off the freeway.
Yeah, that's, I can honestly say I've never seen a soccer
Oh,
game between
arrest him!
protesters. And oh, that
They arrested him.
is one
They took him
protester being
down.
taken into custody. One of those CHP officers got behind him as he was going in for that kick.
This is
and,
crazy
just
anarchy.
pretty much tackled him. And that's what CHP is doing here. With that soccer game going on with this tear gas canister going back and forth as those CHP officers try and kick it back into the crowd, and then the crowd kicks it back. You're seeing CHP kind of slowly pick off some of these protesters that get a little too close or get a little too aggressive in their movements. And there you see another CHP officer again kicking that canister into the crowd, and a protester now throwing it back
He's
towards
throwing
the
it back
CHP
at the
officer.
police.
So this is kind of a dangerous situation here, because you basically have projectiles being thrown back and forth as these protesters now, at least with that tear gas canister, that has put a little bit of distance between that skirmish line. As you can see, that person being taken into custody earlier, kind of wrangling with those CHP officers there just out of frame. CHP with that tear gas, obviously it's not something you want to breathe in. It causes your eyes to burn. It causes you to cough. So that pushed back the protesters just a little bit. Those CHP officers wearing full gas masks, so they're able to kind of tolerate it a little better. If you don't have a gas mask, if you just have any other kind of mask, you're going to be getting the full effects of that tear gas canister. So that's what's creating a little bit of that buffer. As you can see, that CHP officer in the middle, he's trying to, as Bruce Thomas was saying, he's trying to negotiate with some of those protesters in a very, kind of matter-of-fact way, saying, get back, put some distance here, and continue moving off of the freeway. As you can see, this one individual waving an American flag, continuing to yell at some of the officers. I have a feeling if he gets too close, some of those CHP officers might pick him off as well. And that's going to be the process. You saw that skirmish line that was on the opposite line of the freeway. It is now crossed over the center median, and they are doing this very coordinated approach to pin these protesters off the freeway. And you see someone else.
Another arrest.
Yep, and someone else being taken into custody right there, and very quickly. And there's someone. Okay,
They're
looks
arrested.
like another CHP officer grabbing his another fellow officer there. Probably got a little too close for comfort, but you could see just how different the picture looks than what it did 10 minutes ago. Earlier, you had a very wide semicircle of these CHP officers, and now they are narrowing in. They are pushing all of the protesters off of the freeway, which is the goal.
Yeah.
And they are doing this in pretty quick order, and anybody who is getting a little bit too close or a little too aggressive, they're just picking them off and arresting them right then and there.
Yeah,
and this is all part of the plan.
One by one. Gabe, thank you. I want to bring in Sergeant Daniel Keene with the California Highway Patrol, who joins us on the phone watching the CHP execute this clearing of the 101 freeway. Sergeant, thank you for joining us. Can we talk about what's happening right now on the 101?
Yes, sir. Right now, we currently have our CHP special response team that responded to the area to assist with getting the protesters off the freeway. Accessing state highways, it's dangerous. It's not the right spot for a protest, and it puts the protesters, the motorists, and our officers at risk. And we are going to move to get them off the freeway and make arrests. If officers start to take objects and are getting hurt, or other people are getting hurt, it's not going to be tolerated.
Yeah, and we have seen that several times now, these officers coming under attack and taking several people into custody. Can you tell us a little bit about the training in situations like this? We have seen tremendous restraint from a lot of these officers who have been under attack for much of this day, facing these people off who are screaming at them, throwing things at them, and yet maintaining control and trying to de-escalate. How important that is and what you're seeing in terms of execution of that training.
Yes, our special response team goes through additional training, and we are put through situations like this, and this is where what separates us is the professionalism. We're going to stay calm in these situations and use the appropriate amount of force when necessary to effect an arrest if we have to. But we fully support everyone being able to voice their First Amendment rights in the right location. And we will support that. But on the freeway is not the spot for it.
And we're seeing it play out once again, another person taken into custody. A lot of times in these situations, we see unified command go into effect. Has that happened? And how does the presence of National Guard troops who have been federalized kind of change that as it plays out here today?
The CHP is always prepared for mutual aid to other law enforcement when it's needed, and that's just what we go based off. We are the state police, so if there's other areas that need help, we are going to send resources if it is requested through the proper channels to do that.
Sergeant, can you tell me how it's going to play out tonight once these protesters, these demonstrators are taken off the freeway, how it's going to be ensured that they won't make their way back onto the freeway tonight? Will that be CHP? Will that be local? Once you get off the freeway, it turns back to city's jurisdiction?
It's going to be both. It's a fluid situation. CHP is there. We are going to protect any state facilities and our roadways and our highways. And if anyone attempts to take over the freeway, we're going to take swift action to get those roadways back open and keep everyone safe to continue on with our mission of providing safety, service, and security.
Yeah, I know this operation has only been happening for a little bit. Do you have any reports of injuries from any of your officers from anything today?
I don't have those numbers right now, if there was any, but there's always that possibility that officers may get injured, and we hope to prevent that. We hope that people do not throw items at our officers, and that it's just done peacefully, and they go to areas that they can voice their opinions in the right spots.
Okay. Sergeant Daniel Keene with the California Highway Patrol, thank you so much for helping us out here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's a busy day for CHP, law enforcement in general, as once again we are seeing people take to the streets of downtown Los Angeles. This is now day 3 of unrest in our city. We are awaiting word from LA Mayor Karen Bass. She is set to hold a press briefing at any moment. We were told it was set to happen at the bottom of the hour, and we are approaching 15 minutes past that point. And we will see what she has to say. But, you know, anytime the mayor at this point is now going to step in front of a camera, we will likely see her side by side with, you know, smoke bombs and unrest and flashbangs and arrests and officers under attack. So no matter what the mayor says, this is all playing out under her watch, which has been a point of focus for the president and those who work in his administration, saying she is unable to maintain control in this city. I'm sure she will be asked about that tonight when she speaks to the media, if it's opened up to questions about why and how this was able to happen in her city. These are thousands of people, so obviously only so much can be done, and demonstrations are a vital part of our country. Protest is protected by our Constitution, and it should happen, but obviously it should not turn to violence, and that has happened several times in several different locations here today. So as we await word from the mayor, we are watching the California Highway Patrol slowly push these demonstrators back up the on-ramp from the surface of the 101 freeway southbound, and they are being hit with pepper spray and smoke bombs and flashbangs as they want to get these people back off of the roadway, the 101 and the on-ramp. Gabe Santos has been watching this from overhead.
All right, so we got a different perspective here of what's going on. Look at this. This is unbelievable footage. Of the current scene in Los Angeles, right off the 101 freeway. It looks like, whoa! Whoa! Shots fired. We don't know what's going to happen once it gets dark. Look at this. Never seen anything like it. They're screaming, whose streets? Our streets. Whoa! Yo! This is crazy! Look at them on the freeway! This is insane! Whoa! Never seen anything like this! Never seen anything like this! Whoa! They're on the freeway firing at the crowd. Trying to get them off that freeway. Get off the freeway. This is crazy. Never thought I'd see this in my lifetime on this level. Whoa. Insane, folks. They're firing shots. Insane. Wow.
Record, edit, and share your podcast all in one place with Riverside.
Looks like people have been arrested or hurt or what? Crazy. At this point, I expect some fatalities at one point. Let's hope not to. Hi, Jonathan Avery. Hi, Jonathan. How are you? Absolute chaos. Arrest. They'll probably be released tonight. So we got about 3 more hours to sunset. Whoa! They're still firing. So they managed to get him off the 101, off that ramp. Now they're back up on the street there by the Metropolitan Detention Center. But where does the crowd go? They literally have 3 hours to disperse this crowd before it starts getting dark. I think the crowd's going to get very violent tonight. They need to get this
who has
crowd
been arrested, taken into custody, and removed from the situation. And this has continued. Face to face up this on-ramp, the CHP slowly marching these people back and away from the 101. They want to regain control of the roadway. The officers are still in tactical gear down on the surface itself, getting ready for containment so they can hopefully open this back up to vehicle traffic, which has been stopped now for at least an hour as we have been on the air here. The northbound side was open for a time as the southbound side was overtaken, but now both sides have been shut down for some time as the CHP is trying to regain control. All of this is happening as large crowds gather in other portions of downtown, including outside the federal building, the Roybal Detention Facility, where detainees have been brought throughout this weekend. And we have seen 3 days of unrest there, demonstrations and confrontations, and that is where we are looking right now. Gabe Santos in Air 7 really quick before we hit the top of the hour. One last check with you on what we're seeing at the federal building there.
Yeah, Drury, we're keeping an eye on the scene at the federal building and the scene on the freeway. The scene at the federal building appears to be pretty static, and it has been since that motorcycle situation that we saw where 2 motorcycles breached the skirmish line. 2 people were taken into custody there. The motorcycles may have hit a couple of officers there and caused minor injuries to officers who were treated at the scene, and those officers are in stable condition there. We believe those were LAPD officers. So we're keeping an eye on the scene at the federal building, and we're keeping an eye on this large scene on the Aliso ramp to the 101. Large crowd there. It looks to be a couple hundred people, but CHP has been successful in their efforts to clear the protesters off the 101 freeway. So unknown how much longer the 101 freeway will be closed, probably for another few minutes as CHP maybe gets these people further up the off-ramp and completely onto the ramp. And this may, you see another person taken into custody there as a couple things are thrown at officers, and that person may be getting a little too pushy with the officers. That's that person earlier with the green cap with the American flag. So one person being taken into custody there, a little scuffle happening a little further up the ramp here. And in situations like these where you see projectiles being thrown at officers and things being thrown around, sometimes you see those smoke grenades being thrown out by these CHP officers because they have those at the ready to forcefully push these crowds back as you see things get a little bit pushy, a little bit tense.
Okay, here we have Ellie Mae.
Oh, we got the mayor.
Finals will continue.
We got the mayor.
We'll continue to cover this on streaming.
To protest, that's their First Amendment right.
Ah!
But people should also exercise that right peacefully. We do not want to play into the administration's hands. We're working with officials, we're organizing resources, but what we're seeing in Los Angeles is chaos that is provoked by the administration. When you raid Home Depot and workplaces, when you tear parents and children apart, and when you run armored caravans through our streets, you cause fear and you cause panic. And deploying federalized troops is a dangerous escalation, but we need to be real about this. This is about another agenda. It's not about public safety. There's clearly no plan, and there is clearly no policy.
Oh, she's calling out the government.
Los Angeles to know that we stand with all Angelenos, no matter where you were born. The First Amendment right gives you the ability, again, to protest peacefully, but it does not give you the right to be violent, to create chaos, or to vandalize property, and that will not be tolerated. So I call on all Angelenos to continue expressing your right, your anger, your outrage, but to do it peacefully. And I just have to say that all of you were there Friday. Everybody knows what happened Friday. A workplace, several workplaces were targeted and raids took place. Now, in the beginning, the administration said they were just looking for dangerous felons, violent people. It's hard to say that that's what they found at a workplace or in a Home Depot parking lot. When this happens, it terrifies people. It sends a sense of fear and chaos in our city. And you well remember a few years ago in the last administration that kids were afraid to go to school, parents were afraid to go to work. This impacts all of our city. You can't terrify the workforce, and then expect for people to get the jobs done. So if you think about a father that went into a factory and now his family doesn't know where he is, the detainees have not been allowed to speak to legal counsel. That is a marked departure from what has happened in the past. When you think of a mother that might be working in a household, taking care of children on another side of town, that impacts that family as well as her family. And so this is something that I think should not be happening in our city. And I join with the governor in appealing to the administration.
When it comes to getting to market in a more quick manner, Popular Pace helps us move quickly and efficiently. As we all know, though social media moves really quickly, influencer marketing moves really quickly. It's not always easy to find the right influencers like that. At the beginning of my career, you had to do it all.
Mayor, these protests or demonstrations, I should say, did start out peaceful. You've been here since
Right.
in the morning.
Right.
But then they scattered and people were moved
Right.
around. Where is the LAPD in terms of being here to be able to deal with that and maybe stop them before they get on the freeway?
Sure. Well, I think that basically they were overrun. But what is happening now is that the freeway is cleared. The California Highway Patrol, as you know, is in charge of the freeways. So they have moved all of the protesters back. They still might be there, but they are beginning to be dispersed. But LAPD is on the perimeter, so LAP is actively involved. You know that there were hundreds of protesters on the freeway and thousands of protesters off the freeway. So there is a joint collaboration going with the CHP, the LAPD, and then frankly the National Guard. But you also know that the National Guard is deployed to protect federal property. So there is a National Guard troops in Westwood at the federal building and also here downtown.
Next question is
Jason.
Mayor Bass, have you reached out directly to the federal government, or is this you doing so right now with the media here? Have you tried to reach out?
No, my disappointment is I've been talking to the federal government for days. I was hoping to prevent this situation from happening. I was trying to encourage the administration that if they deployed the National Guard in Los Angeles, it would create a sense of chaos. It's the last thing our city needs. Our city is still trying to recover from the wildfires. And you just think about how so many people were impacted by that. And that's an example of where the administration was helpful. And to go from that situation to where we are now is just really tragic. And I think it's so unfortunate. It's the last thing Los Angeles needs.
When you say you've reached out to the federal government, do you have any
We are listening to
No, I
LA
did
Mayor
not.
Karen Bass address her city amidst unrest in Los Angeles. If you're continuing on ABC7 on air, we will switch things over to the NBA Finals Game 2 between
Safety of the people who are peacefully protesting. I'm worried about the businesses that might get vandalized. I'm worried about the vandalism that took place around the federal building. All of that. We do not need to see our city torn apart. And the idea that the federal government that should be assisting us is a contributing factor, I think is very tragic. When I see the protesters, I know that so many people are affected by this. Their families are affected by this. People are terrified.
How do you think that vandalism impacts the overall message of the protest?
Well, I mean, I first of all, I think protests need to be peaceful, period. And anytime it deteriorates into violence, that is a problem, and it absolutely messes with the overall message.
Next question right here in white.
Yeah, hi, Mayor. George Reuters. My question is, can you share a little bit about the conversations you've had with the governor, and how long you expect for the National Guard to actually be in Los Angeles?
You know what? Thanks for asking me that, because we're hearing all of sorts of information. We're hearing that the raids could continue. We're hearing that the National Guard is going to be here. So it's uncertain. But that's exactly the problem. Because we don't need in this city to go to sleep tonight and wake up in the morning and find out about people running through Home Depot parking lots being chased by ICE officers, or people going to work, or children at school. So we don't need any of that in our city right now. Our city's trying to heal. Our city is trying to rebuild. Our city does not need to be torn apart with a provocative measure from the federal government.
We're going to go right here and then we'll go right here.
So, Mayor, the reality is people seem to still be getting violent. How do you plan to deal with that as we move forward?
If people get violent, if people break the law, they will be subject to arrest and they will be held accountable. It's as simple as that. So peaceful protest is what is needed. Peaceful protest is a part of our American tradition.
Right here. Mayor, last night the U.S. Attorney seemed resolute that he's ready to continue regardless of what's happened over the last 2 or 3 days. In your conversations with him, has there been any kind of attempted compromise or somehow lowering the temperature, at least when things cool off locally, if they want to continue, or are they just doing it regardless of how everyone else feels?
Well, I mean, I think what we see now is they're doing it regardless of how anyone else feels. My conversation with the U.S. Attorney, though, was not focused on that.
We're going to go Frank?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, hi, Frank.
It appears that the LAPD is cooperating with ICE in this operation outside the Metropolitan Detention Center. They moved in, they were There was a peaceful protest. The LAPD moved the people back using flashbang and less than lethal munitions. Comment on that, because
Sure.
the LAPD is not supposed to be cooperative with us.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not sure that LAPD was involved with the flashbangs. But anyway, let me just say that what happened there is that when one branch of law enforcement says they need help, another branch of law enforcement is going to respond and is obligated to respond. And so the minute that protest left the federal building, then that's when LAPD were involved. So the cooperation that you're referring to, I believe, is the cooperation around coordinating with ICE in terms of raiding workplaces or arresting people who are undocumented.
Right here in the break.
Hi, what's your exact understanding of the timeline for how long the National Guard is going to be here? How long the raids are going to continue? Are there going to be daily raids?
I have no exact timeline. I cannot tell you that. That's part of the problem, right? We do not know. I have heard a variety of days and weeks. I certainly hope that this is over. The last thing this city needs is civil unrest, and the last thing this city needs is civil unrest that's provoked.
Quick follow-up. So I've seen LAPD fire point blank foam bullets, rubber bullets into the ground, but in some cases directly at protesters. Can you speak about what kind of orders they're under in terms of handling people protesting?
I can't in terms of the specific orders that are being given by the chief or the other commanding officers.
So Mayor, will you be speaking then to Chief McDonald?
I'm going to speak to him in the next few minutes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
So
I'm
what is
leaving
in
from
the
here
plan?
to meet with him.
Great. What is in the plan for tomorrow? Because let's say presumably this does not.
Right. Well, you know, I think one thing is that because our city has always had a very robust immigrant rights movement and infrastructure and institutions that have been around for several decades, there is a history of having peaceful protests here. Now, you know, like any crowd, if we're talking about after an athletic event, everybody celebrates. There's always a handful of people that tend to be at the end and tend to hang around and might get into mischief and violence. But that's not the people who are putting on the protests. I tell you that to say that when those protests have been organized, they've been organized in a proper way. The problem is what happens at the end, and that's one thing that is difficult with crowd control, whether it is a political protest or whether it is a football game.
Did you say you talked to Tom Holman?
Yes, I did talk to Tom Holman.
What did he tell you?
Well, he just listened. I mean, the main thing he said was he appreciated that there was a call for no violence. I'm not exactly sure what was expected, but, you know, I was encouraging him not to deploy the National Guard. I knew that the order had been given. The president had signed the order to the governor that he was federalizing the National Guard, that 2,000 troops were going to be deployed, but that didn't mean that they would actually be deployed onto our streets. So my conversation with him was trying to encourage to prevent the deployment. Obviously, that did not work.
And to be clear, the mayor is going to meeting with the police chief and anybody else, or just the police chief?
The police chief, the sheriff, and the governor.
Quickly, Mayor, about peaceful protests, we're hearing the noises outside as this crowd is getting closer and presumably more violent as they're coming up through the streets here. I know it's nice to talk about peaceful protests.
That's not peaceful, what was happening. It's not peaceful for people to be on the highways. It's not peaceful for people to throw rocks or bottles. That's not peaceful.
So then how do we reconcile the difference? Obviously, there's frustration with the Trump administration and the feds, but as LAPD and the Sheriff's Department try to distance themselves from the actions of these immigration actions and work being done, they're against authority in a lot of ways. You're standing outside City Hall, Which is your office. It's not necessarily against you. How do you distance yourself, but also kind of try to keep it peaceful at a time where it's anti-authority?
Well, and let me just tell you that I don't think there's any equivocating on nonviolence. And if you are going to entertain violence, if you are going to try to take over a freeway, then you are going to suffer the consequences of doing that. I don't think that LAPD, the sheriff, and certainly not myself, are not shying away from statements like that.
Mayor, do you want to provide some National Guard mission is going to be?
I'm sorry?
Any details about what the National Guard mission is going to be within LA, where they're going to be deployed?
Well, what I know right now is that the mission of the National Guard is to protect federal property and the federal building, which is why you have only seen them there. You have not seen them out in the community or anything like that. And just in terms of, to close, to wrap up, I just have to say
that, again, our city has been through a lot since the beginning of the year. And now thinking that there is a large percentage of our city that is terrified, that is not going to know if they go to sleep tonight and they go to work or they go to school, will that be the last day they do that? Will that be the last day they see their family? We can't have this in our city. Los Angeles is a city of immigrants where 50% of the population is Latino. A percentage of the populations are from Asian countries and from all over the world. And we embrace all Angelenos. It doesn't matter where you came from or when you got here. But the most important thing right now is that our city be peaceful. And so protests and expressing your, fears, your beliefs is appropriate to do, but it is just not appropriate for there to be violence. And I don't want people to fall into the chaos that I believe is being created by the administration completely unnecessarily. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. All right, that is the
Mayor
Mayor
Bass
Bass.
wrapping up a news conference about the ongoing federal immigration enforcement as well as the subsequent protests, calling on the president to rescind the order that federalized the California National.
All right, so let's take us back to the scene here of what's going on. Flashbangs, smoke, shots fired. Karen Bass is pretty much saying, well, you can protest, but we don't support the violence. And then also saying we don't support the National Guard coming in and what the Trump administration is doing.
Turn your pastime into your full-time. Your
side, right by this federal Metropolitan Detention Center. I've been watching these other feeds too, so we'll change if it gets really crazy somewhere else. But this is a good view and perspective of this entire situation. And we got about less than 3 hours now till it gets dark. Less than 3 hours until it gets dark. What's going to happen here? A lot of people out there, thousands are still out there in the streets. Thousands are still out in the streets. The question is, does the military come in tonight? Thank you, Awakened One. Thank you, Michelle. Welcome to JLR Investigates. Reading some of your comments. A lot of comments coming through. Justice Mama, thank you. Cal Pope Ranch, thank you. JRG Projects, thank you. Brian, thank you. Cynthia, thank you. Brian Clapcroft, thank you. MDM Media 18, thank you. Vic the Red, thank you. Is that Bubby? B-U-B-Y. Garcia, thank you. Velvet, thank you. Cynthia Sunquist, thank you for being a member for 4 months. Robin, thank you.
Maybe in the riots of
We got violence.
We didn't have these automated vehicles that are kind of easy to corner and easy to
MTO,
stop. And protesters appear to be taking advantage of that and using these automated vehicles as maybe billboards for their message. And unknown what
major vandalism.
The Waymo's response to this is going to be. Do they just kind of shut down?
And a car on fire.
On fire, they're probably going to.
Folks, it's getting bad out here.
These are owned by a company. They're not owned by a specific individual. So at least, it's not a sole individual that is now at a loss for a vehicle. You have these corporate vehicles that are probably insured, so that's at least one bit of good news. But this is obviously not anything we like to see. We don't want to see things burning in the streets. We don't want to see all these acts of vandalism that we're seeing now taking place on the Chinatown side of the 101 freeway. And we're seeing a lot of these protesters move northbound on Los Angeles Street.
They're destruction. They're doing vandalism. Look at this.
That we saw a little bit closer to Temple and
fire
Street, where those mounted officers from LAPD kind of clashed a few
months
ago. I'm not sure if that's what's spurring some of these protesters to continue northbound on Los Angeles Street, or if they're just kind of moving forward. Look
at this.
This
unlawful assembly riot, fire.
I think this must have happened in the last 20 minutes or so, because I had eyes on this section of street before Mayor Bass started talking, and this was not here. We were seeing a vehicle, I think that truck is there a little further. If Rob pans to the left, there was a truck with some people on the back of the truck, possibly speaking, making announcements, and I thought that was maybe one reason why people were continuing northbound on Los Angeles Street. But now we see these Waymos that may have just gotten, these automated vehicles maybe don't know that there's a protest. They don't have that programmed into their software to be aware of that, so they probably just drove into it, and people, they know that if you stand in front of it, they just stop, and people are obviously taking advantage of that right now. And you can see one person leaning on the hood, taking a selfie with that Waymo that's on fire, and a lot of messages from protesters being painted on these Waymos right now on a Sunday night.
Yeah, things devolving in some parts of downtown, and you do not want to see
Sunday night.
Fires,
these arson,
electric cars.
Right when
burning is
the mayor was speaking,
bad toxins into the air, but an electric car in particular, once it hits that battery, you're talking about a very difficult job for firefighters. This is going to continue to burn those lithium-ion batteries, and the size of them and the amount of power they have in them. Once they catch fire, this is going to be a bad situation. You hope it's not an explosion and people aren't too close, but I know if I were near a burning electric car, I would get away as quickly as I can as the destruction continues here. We're hoping to talk, and here we go. Someone else starting a fire in one of these vehicles ran out of fuel, thankfully, before that one could and now hiding their identity. But again, this is something, it's a volatile situation. I don't know if police are able to move in to this scene and try and calm things down, get these folks out. The fire department at some point is going to have to be called in to put this car out, and now a major conflagration in this car. We saw in Compton yesterday when that car was lit on fire in the middle of the intersection. The firefighters had to come in and had to be protected by police. You have a line of officers
do one more hit,
be able
guys,
to move in, and
they're trying to set another one on fire.
Safe, and even those firefighters had projectiles thrown at them. So again, this car is now fully engulfed.
Total anarchy.
The other Waymos on fire. And as this is playing out again, we want to try to get to Tim Caputo, who just heard from Mayor Karen
Total
Bass.
anarchy.
I just heard from
in downtown Los Angeles.
There's not a lot of time left. Are they out? Okay, they are
total anarchy.
We'll have to go back to the airport to refuel. So we hope to check back in with Gabe Santos shortly. And as we wait again, we're hoping to talk to Tim Caputo, who just questioned the mayor of Los Angeles directly with some very pointed and very impressive line of questioning, because it sounds at times that the mayor is trying to have it both ways. She blamed all the chaos that has played out in Los Angeles this weekend on the Trump administration's actions, and at the same time, on the other hand, said that violence is not acceptable, and so admitting that there is a lot of violence playing out amid these protests, and so that is clearly the people who are committing the violence are not Trump administration officials, so they are to blame as well. So, it sounds like she's having it both ways. Let's zoom in back on that car, because we're starting to see some explosions emerge from that. You see the fuel now on the street, now burning on the surface of Los Angeles street, and people still maintaining a really close proximity. You see those flames coming out of there really fast and powerful. Something in there has caught where we're talking about a volatile, dangerous situation, and you hope that this is the only car that is set ablaze, and you still see some flames there on the roadway as that fuel, whatever fuel source is now burning, has now made its way onto the street itself.
And Jory, sorry to interrupt, but looking at the Waymo right there, I was looking at what kind of fumes the Waymo sets out whenever it's set on fire like this. I'm not even sure if the protesters even realize that how toxic and dangerous these fumes can be. Hydrogen fluoride, carbon monoxide, just these flammable gases that can potentially explode. And we could possibly even see an explosion happening from this Waymo if it's on fire long enough. And just all these protesters in that area, again, this air, it's just so toxic, and it just really makes you question, why would they do something like this?
Yeah, that's just mob mentality at this point, just watching things burn. That's Nico Kazori joining our coverage here. I'm Jory Rand as we are continuing our coverage of the unrest in downtown Los Angeles, and we do see possibly some officers moving in now to try and gain control of this situation. This is still... I saw some smoke in the background.
Mayor Bass is encouraging people to peacefully protest.
These officers are moving in on
Look
this
at
situation, but a large crowd gathering here. I think this is Los Angeles Street. 5 cars from the fleet of Waymos that now service Los Angeles have been attacked, vandalized, and destroyed. This one on the right of this window is now fully engulfed in flames, and it just continues a day of unrest in Los Angeles that is in response to moves by the Department of Homeland Security and ICE under the Trump administration as they continue to take those in this country illegally out of the United States.
Absolutely. And we were talking about the National Guard a little bit earlier. They're deployed. 2,000 troops are here. And pretty much President Donald Trump basically bypassed Governor Newsom's authority, and he deployed the troops here. And that makes you think that's another thing that these protesters are angry with, and that's another reason why these protests are getting a little out of control. Tensions are high, and earlier during that press conference, Mayor Bass did say, she said, Angelenos have the right to exercise their First Amendment right, but peacefully and not like this. So this is what we are seeing here. This is the scene in downtown LA. Again, these protests, they erupted amid the ICE raids, and it's the 3rd day of civil unrest. Jory's been talking about this for hours now. You have been covering this since 1 this afternoon. Is this when
it's been going for hours. We know there was a demonstration this morning. It stretched into the afternoon, and then 2 large demonstrations converged into one. Governor Newsom responding to the president today with a number of posts to social media, and some of this is stuff we have never seen before in the United States. So the governor responding to a video of President Trump speaking to reporters today, saying there will be law and order in the streets of the United States. The governor writing, inciting and provoking violence, creating mass chaos, militarizing cities, arresting opponents. These are the acts of a dictator, not a president. The governor also writing officially to the Trump administration.
We are in a full-blown riot.
Their unlawful deployment of troops in Los Angeles County and return them to my command. This is the governor posting to Twitter. He writes, we didn't have a problem until Trump got involved. This is a serious breach of state sovereignty, inflaming tensions while pulling resources from where they're actually needed. Rescind the order. Return control to California. That is a message to the President of the United States. Attached is a letter written from the office of the governor to the Trump administration and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, signed by David Sapp, Legal Affairs Secretary in the office of Governor Newsom. And it goes on to list ways where the governor and the state believe it's unlawful for the president to have federalized members of the National Guard, writing, this is done under Section 10 of the legal code as how they federalize U.S. troops. But this lawyer writing that Section 12406 states that, quote, the president may call into federal service members and units of the National Guard of any state in such numbers as he considers necessary to, 1, repel an invasion of the United States by a foreign nation. That has not happened. to suppress a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. There is an argument that I'm sure the president will make that stands here. And 3, execute the laws of the United States when the president is unable to do so with regular forces. That is not the case here as well. So they will look to likely number 2 there of those three citations within the code. But the office of the governor writing the section further states that orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states. And therein lies the problem. This was not done at the request of the governor of California, which is typically how the federalization of National Guard's troops happens. We've seen it happen quite often, in fact. Niku, we saw it happen during the fires. We've visited these sites and seen National Guards members guarding entrances and exits. We saw it during the 2020 civil unrest. National Guards members were on the streets, and we have seen it in the past, but it happens at the request of the governor, not in opposition to the governor.
And it makes you think this is so hard to predict what can happen next, because this is just, it's not going in the right order. So, I mean, just like you said, so it's really hard to think what are the next steps, because things have happened out of order. And looking back at that Waymo, you can see now an even larger crowd gathered around.
They're trying to set the other one on fire. Look.
And a little bit earlier, I think I saw some
this is
skateboard
anarchy.
the Waymo.
This is chaos. This is rioting.
But that other Waymo has been on fire, I'd say at least
Look,
for the
they're
last
still smashing the window.
Probably.
It was in the trunk, and now the car is just completely engulfed. And these folks are just standing here. One person with a hammer on the windshield. We see that man on the roof with a skateboard trying to just basically break anything off this car that they are able to do. And I don't know if we can pull out and see if any officers are in this area. But again, this situation has devolved into chaos. When we have seen quite a bit of it this weekend play out in Los Angeles, and you start to see.
Oh, we got breaking news. The Department of Defense just deployed 500 active Marines.
In the midst of a crowd making their way through Los Angeles. Again, we just heard from LA Mayor. There's the explosion that we've been waiting for to see if it would happen. That car has now exploded as it likely is reaching the lithium battery that powers these electric cars. I think typically they're found on the, beneath the car, along the frame of those vehicles. And so once the fire reaches down there, it is very difficult to put these fires out. I think I remember a crash on a bridge recently where there was some kind of fuel or a vehicle that could not be put out, and they encased it and basically just dragged it off of the bridge. But here we have, some knuckleheads trying to continue to damage this car, do whatever they can to get involved in this, basically a mob party as they watch this car burn.
Yeah, and again, these EV fires, they're absolutely no joke. Those fumes that are in the air, again, these protesters, they're so close to that fire. They're breathing in all of the toxic gases. Again, we talked about carbon monoxide, hydrogen fluoride. Those aren't things that you should be breathing in, and they are just feet away from that car that exploded. And it makes you think, is that the plan for the second Waymo? I believe there's 3, were there 3 or 5 Waymos?
5 of them,
5 Waymos. And it's just a terrifying thought to think that they want to light all 5 Waymos on fire. And looking at this crowd, you can see a few different flags within that crowd, and they continue to move. I believe this is Temple Street. Did we say this is?
Yeah, it's Temple.
I think this is
right by the
Los Angeles,
detention center,
just across the 101. Once the California Highway Patrol came in to clear the 101 freeway, the crowds kind of have
anarchy
all across downtown Los Angeles. This we saw a large group. Oh, there's 2 cars on fire now. So they were able to light a second car. And we're going to see this play out here on both ends of this string of 5 Waymo cars still burning here.
And this is the group in Chinatown. Now, we have a few different scenes. So this is just one of the scenes. I'm curious what the other scenes look like at this time, if they've calmed down a little bit, or this is, because this is still a very large crowd. I mean, I've barely seen any improvement in the last few hours. So it looks like these protesters—
It's getting worse, getting more violent.
It seems like this protest is dragging.
It's not a protest. It's a riot.
It's fair to say
it's a riot.
Down long before this crowd breaks apart for the evening. Can we pan around and see if there's still a group at the federal building? I know our vantage point has kind of shifted here. We're on the west or south side of, okay, we do have, this is Temple.
You don't wake up a legend. You build it brick by brick, one swing at a time.
So what do you need here? Soft, medium, firm? Cooling tech you never knew you needed. How about a queen for the lady?
Anything from these LAPD officers, but showing they are not planning
They're
to go
waiting for it to
anywhere.
get
This says
dark.
Aliso, so it's backed up a little bit. They have
They're
cleared the
waiting for it to
intersection
get
in Temple
dark.
and Alameda. Oh, this is on the backside. Gotcha. Okay, so this is the top of the hill. Here's the bottom of the hill. This is where.
So we're going to show different angles here. What's going on? The Marines have been activated. 500 Marines have been activated. It could be deployed within the next 24 hours. Fire is going on. Vandalism. Oh, here they come. Here they come. What's going on here? 500 Marines have been activated. Got all types of crazy things going on down there.
Excuse me, man.
There's that vehicle that was set on fire. They're still vandalizing vehicles. $500 Marines have been activated. U.S. Marines. How edgy. Hey, well, all these people are on national TV committing vandalism and violence on national TV. Oh my goodness. I heard that. Crazy. Official, thank you. Yes, 500 Marines have been called in. MTO Creations, thank you for being a member. I've been looking on these other feeds. Folks, we only got about 2 hours and 25 minutes till it gets dark. This is live in the streets of Los Angeles. Total anarchy, chaos. Much worse today than yesterday and the day before. Look at that guy's mask. I don't understand. What is the point of it? And where is the police? You hear the helicopters above? Where are the police to put the fire out? You got a lot of troublemakers out here now, masked up, tear gassed up, dressed in all black. Where are the police? Yeah, I believe there will be casualties at one point. Who knows what else is going on? Well, we got 2 more hours of sunlight. Allie Brooks, thank you for being a member. Arkansas White Dove, thank you for being a member. Tangerine, thank you for being a member. Blue Scrubs N, thank you, thank you, thank you for the support. Robin, thank you for being a member. Rocket Queen, nice to see you comment. Thank you for being here. Mama Bear K, MDM, who can declare martial law? The president. Thank you for the comment. Susan, thank you. Bobby Cat, I'm going back and reading some of the highlighted comments here. Bobby Cat, thank you. The amount of people affected is crazy. I work in medicine and can't get to work due to these fools. Keep up the great coverage. Thank you. Michelle, thank you for being a member. So 500 Marines have been 500 Marines been activated. We are definitely monitoring the situation. Now 2 are on fire.
So if I ever need to film guests, but we're literally on the other side of the planet.
Excited to be on the show, Jordan.
Riverside makes tackle.
This is live. Unbelievable. Whoa, is that Michael Myers? A picture of Michael Myers. That was creepy. I just saw Michael Myers' picture. Where's the police? Where are the police? Where's the National Guard? Uh-oh. Oh, thank God the horn stopped.
Hey, what's up? Oh, thank you. All right, man.
Mama Bear, thank you for the comment. Might get very bad, as worse as it is. I mean, this is bad. This is gone. There's no peaceful at all. Samantha Joy, thank you for the comment. I am very worried about once it gets dark here today. Because this brings out the anarchists, the terrorists, the professional agitators. And he's committing a crime while he's on TV right here.
Oh, yeah.
Where the fire department? Where are they at? Where's the fire department? Insane.
Sorry.
Don't block the news camera, pal. Crazy. Now standing on vehicles. So we got about 2 more hours till sun. 2 more hours.
When looking at your meal, you must always make sure there's enough sauce for every single bite.
For $10, get a Big Mac or 10-piece Chicken McNuggets meal, each paired with medium fries and a medium soft drink.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
office. The roadway has not reopened to traffic, but things do seem to be calming down. The question is, will they remain that way tonight? Because we did see a kind of relaxing of tension yesterday about this point, and then things picked back up again in the evening once the sun went down.
We're looking at a different view perspective of what's going on.
We can ask him a couple questions, but I'd love to know.
Are we
Bruce's
calming
take
down?
on just, looking at the demonstrations the past few days and comparing it to what we've seen today. Does it look, just looking at these wide aerial views, it looks like it is starting to calm down, and I'd love to get Bruce's take on that.
Yeah, definitely. It's calmed down now. There's kind of a lull in the fight, if you will. However, what we have seen over the last 3 days is an escalation of the protests, the taking over of the freeway, the burning of the cars, the graffitiing of the buildings and the freeway overpasses. And what you've seen is a large police response, not only just LAPD, but the Federal Protective Police, and also mounted enforcement for LAPD, which we have not seen before.
And Bruce, have you?
No, I don't know if that's calming down.
Into those Waymo cars, have you seen something like this before? And what are the consequences of seeing these EV fires?
Well, it was interesting. I saw a line of the Waymo vehicles over by Alfera Street, and I was wondering what they were doing, but then I remembered they're driverless. So they're kind of stuck in confusion, and then they became easy targets for some of the agitated protesters to burn and torch.
Right, and we talked to Tim a little bit earlier as well. He said that the protesters, they are agitated, and they have a lot of resentment toward, it's not just what's going on right now, but even toward the media as well. What do you think, if you could put yourself in those protesters' shoes, like the minds of them, what do you think is going on right now? And as we head into the evening hours, you think that things are starting to calm down and they're starting to cool off? What's your prediction on that?
Like I said, I believe this is a lull in the fight. I think once the sun goes down, you're going to see more protesters come back. You're going to see a takeover of the freeway again, and you're going to see more, we'll call it anarchism, if you will, for lack of a better word. These people are just not happy with the media, with the police, with anything, and everybody's being lumped into one large group.
Right, and right now we are looking at a live view. I believe this is live. I don't think this is video from earlier. This is earlier. Okay, this is video from earlier on the right, but on the left, I see down there it says earlier. On the left, this is the live view, and it looks like some law enforcement, they're making their way toward an area. I'm not sure which direction they're going to, which street this is exactly, but we're getting a wider view. They're heading down the street and interested to see what their next move is going to be. We panned away from the Waymo. I think that scene is kind of just playing out on its own. The fire's just going to continue to keep running, but it's interesting to see what is the next step right now.
Yeah, I think law enforcement is regrouping, meaning they're getting some additional personnel that are going off shift, and those that are coming on, they're being fully briefed. They're being suited up, as you will, with equipment and resources for the rest of the night. And you'll see them move into those areas to relieve some of those day shift personnel.
Hey Bruce, we are seeing what looks like those flashbangs continue to go off. We can't spot where the officers would be. Have you been watching? Are you seeing flashbangs, or are these fireworks being set off by members of the demonstration?
At this point, I believe they're fireworks, because I've been looking at some different coverages, and I don't see the officers deploying those less than lethal weaponry. So at this point, I believe it's fireworks, possibly the same group that torched the Waymo vehicles.
And we're now looking at the mounted officers from the LAPD. A lot of people at our station, Bruce, had the same reaction once the horses were being moved in to confront some of these demonstrators, just worried about the horses themselves. I'm not sure the experience you have with these, with the mounted. We do see projectiles being thrown at these officers here, and they are firing back.
There you go, they're firing
projectiles. But the training that goes into these mounted officers, the horses, to deal with these situations, we wouldn't think that they would be suited to go into a situation like this. As we're watching this, one person stick their head out of a car. And
there's a group of people
yeah,
who have that car too.
Okay, let's see
What's
if we can
going
swing the
on with
helicopter
this?
around, because this is the first kind of action we've seen in,
Is this
in,
somebody
probably
trying
about
to
an hour
ram
between people
ram
on
the
ground
crowd?
and
Like, what's going
officers.
on here?
So I will get back to that question.
Why are they
Again,
shooting at the
treating
car?
of the horses, Bruce,
Yeah.
in a little bit as we watch
Yeah.
this play out. But I guess we can answer it right now. Just the fact that they're able to handle loud situations like this with protesters in their face.
Yeah, the horses and the mounted officers go over hundreds of hours of training. The horses are accustomed to loud noises, flashbangs, light, basically loud everything. The horses are very well maintained on that. The horses are also protected with their face, with a mask of plexiglass, and also the mounted officers are protected. But they're also supported by officers on the ground too. The mounted units are an awesome tool to clear crowds. I've used them, and only second to motorcycle officers. They're very, very effective.
Bruce, can you tell us usually when do they make the call to bring the horses in? Like, how bad does the situation have to be?
You know, I was kind of surprised that we didn't see them until just now, meaning, maybe an hour ago. They're a great tool to use with law enforcement, and they do clear crowds. People do not want to stand in front of a horse that, outweighs them by a couple 100 pounds. So I was kind of surprised we didn't see them, but now they're being used, and they're being used very effectively.
So I'm just curious. Obviously, I don't have much training when it comes to just knowing law enforcement and when they use the horses. You explained that really well, how it helps with clearing the crowds. But I'm curious, why haven't they moved further in toward the crowd right now, now that they are on the horses, if they can clear the crowds?
It seems like they're just trying to maintain an operational area. I'm surprised they haven't been used to clear so that LA City Fire can move in and put these vehicles out. But I think they're very content in just letting them burn, as they do have lithium batteries in them, which presents a whole other problem for the fire department and for the safety of everybody involved. But I can tell you, once the mounted units are called, they respond, and they respond very effectively.
As we're watching this play out, Bruce, stand by for a moment. There is reaction coming in from around the country and around the world. There was a post from Ileana Garcia. She is the co-founder of Latinas for Trump, who writes, I want to put myself on the record, Garcia writes, says, this is not what we voted for. I have always supported Donald Trump through thick and thin. However, this is unacceptable and inhumane. I understand the importance of deporting criminal aliens, but what we are witnessing are arbitrary measures to hunt down people who are complying with their immigration hearings, in many cases with credible fear of persecution claims, all driven by a Stephen Miller-like desire to satisfy a self-fabricated deportation goal. This undermines the sense of fairness and justice that the American people value. Again, that is the co-founder of Latinas for Trump, Ileana Garcia. And so as we continue to circle around downtown Los Angeles, which has been the site of unrest for coming up on 72 hours now, and we have seen the National Guard of California federalize 2,000 troops. We see a fire crew moving through to put out 5 electric self-driving cars that have been burned, and a line of officers that continue to fire non-lethal rounds to try and break up crowds that are throwing projectiles at them. This tonight is the state of Los Angeles, under siege from a lot of different fronts here. You talk about people upset that the federal government is getting involved and in occupying, invading our city. You have another side who says that illegal immigrants have invaded and occupied our city, and it's coming to a head on the streets of Los Angeles again tonight.
And it's just looking at these images, it's just so heartbreaking seeing that these people are so angry, and this is what we are seeing, the aftermath of the anger and the tensions. And you understand both sides. You understand that people, they have their right to their opinion, but acting out in this way, this was supposed to be a peaceful protest turned very just not peaceful. So Mayor Bass said it best in her press conference. I'm trying to find my notes from that. She said Angelenos have the right to exercise their First Amendment right, but peacefully and not like this. Yeah. So we don't like seeing scenes like this.
Can we zoom in on the bottom of the screen? Is that a barricade wall that these folks have set up? Okay. Oh, Gabe's back?
Look at this.
Okay, great. We've got Gabe Santos back.
We
in our
got
setup.
we
It looks
got
like
some
they have
sort of
taken some barricades here, some
barricades and
are those
stuff. It looks
chairs?
like the
Those might be chairs
Chaz,
from
or they're
Grand
trying to
Park.
set
They might have
something up.
dislodged those from Grand Park or somewhere, and put up a barricade here in the middle of the road and firing things, throwing things at officers who are firing back. Gabe Santos, what are you seeing?
Yeah, Jory, Nico, we keep talking about this multi-pronged situation here. You have the Waymos that are burning to the north of the 101 freeway. This is to the south of the 101 as it cuts through downtown near Main. And I think the other cross there is, looks like that's the Los Angeles. No, this is Main and 1st Street, I believe. We'll get the exact cross there for you shortly. It is very near to City Hall. And what happened is some of the protesters started building a bit of a kind of a fort, if you will, using those chairs, as you said, possibly from a nearby art installation. We're dealing with the trees and the buildings here, trying to get you the best shot as possible. But you can see a few of those protesters back there, and LAPD actually got on their radios and reported that they were taking projectiles that were being thrown by the protesters towards officers. So officers are trying to get more resources in this area, and this is where about maybe 30 or 40 minutes ago there was that skirmish that erupted from the protesters after this freeway situation. This is the Aliso ramp onto the 101, where a lot of protesters were pushed back up onto surface streets. They were on the 101 earlier. You could see there, it looks like one side of the 101 is open. There are those Waymos there. That are one that caught fire on First is now, that appears to be a complete loss. No surprise there. But it is probably
all that
going
juice
to
on bikes.
completely burned to the ground.
Biker
City
crew.
Fire doesn't want
Bunch of
any
bikes
part
have
of this.
arrived.
They for just mere safety of their personnel, they are not going to work their way into this area. And LAPD, they have their hands full. They actually made a request earlier to see if federal units were available, additional federal units were available to actually help LAPD deal with what was going on in this intersection here. You could see a lot of debris on the ground, things still being thrown, and LAPD, for obvious reasons, being told that federal forces don't have anybody to spare, really. They are focused on guarding the federal building and making sure things are okay there. So LAPD using their mounted units to maintain a blockade on this intersection. And Rob, as we tilt down, they are now dealing with what is an apparent blockade by some protesters using these chairs, like we said, from a nearby art installation, as building a fort, if you will. Looks like some construction signs and various other signs. And this is where things get pretty interesting.
Oh,
look
look at this.
Some of them are backing up now. I'm
Look.
not sure. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
LAPD is
They
now
just get rid of it.
making a
Look at
move
that.
Forward. They are
They're just going forward.
using some of their
Look
less
at
than lethal
this.
fire, rubber
Wow.
bullets presumably, and they are making a move forward. So LAPD,
They're
not
just
letting
pushing them
this
right
fort,
out of the
if you
way.
will, become any more fortified.
Hey, how was
They
your
are
barriers
making a move
doing,
and,
pal?
having these protesters disperse and hopefully preventing something a little more serious from happening further down. So you can see those mounted units.
Look at this. They ain't
continuing
playing.
down. Those units on foot continuing to fire that less than lethal
They ain't
fire
playing.
towards those protesters. You see that looks like that was, I'm not sure if that was a smoke grenade or if that was a water bottle from some of the protesters being thrown at one of the horses. And those horses are continuing to make their way down the street towards where that fort was. You can now see it's been completely destroyed. And they are continuing to push protesters down. I'm not sure if that's a bag rolling or if that's, or if it's...
That's a person.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's actually a person that was just kind of continuing to roll down. And that officer on horseback is, forcefully suggesting that that person get up and continue moving down the street. And you could see here these other protesters, some of them were building that barricade on the street a little to the top of the frame.
Yeah.
They are now being dispersed further down the street, and those officers with those rubber bullets continuing to make headway here.
And as we watch this play
This
out,
is
Gabe,
crazy.
I want to
They're
go to
running
Bruce
around the
Thomas real
street
quick
shooting.
and ask him about the sticks that we see those mounted officers using. We saw batons earlier deployed on guys on the skirmish line, on the front lines. But we are seeing these officers mounted using some kind of stick to kind of beat back these demonstrators.
Yeah, Joey, it's a straight stick. It's a tool that some departments still have their patrol officers carry. Being on horseback, the straight stick is longer. You're able to reach out. You're able to move people with it. But what we've seen also is the officers intermixed with the horses. And that's part of the training. The horses are not afraid of the flashbangs, of the R1 rounds when they go off. And assaulting a horse is a grade 1 felony. And I can tell you, if we saw some people throw stuff at the horses.
Oh, what's
those
everybody
officers
running?
will make the point to take those people to jail.
Yeah.
Bruce, I'm curious. You mentioned a straight stick. That's what the weapon that they're using is called. What are the injuries like with a straight stick if you get hit by it with the force that they're showing today?
Kind of like a baseball bat. It's made of wood. It's laminated. So if you get hit with it, you may have a welt or a bruise. It's not something that's going to totally incapacitate you, as it's more for glancing blows to move people, and then the horse and the mounted officer will move past the problem, so to speak.
And we see those chairs and debris and barricade being carried away from this location. Again, another crowd once again gathering outside City Hall in the middle of the street, blocking traffic and trying to set up looks like another barricade. That is directly outside LA City Hall. Once again, we saw Molina Park there on the left, City Hall on the right, and as we go down, it's down towards LAPD headquarters, which is right across the street from City Hall. So at the bottom of your screen now, that angled triangular building, that is LAPD headquarters. Right there, don't have to travel far to kind of see the thick of where this is happening tonight. And you can also kind of see just the juxtaposition, how far away the earlier skirmishes were at Alameda and Temple. That's the federal complex where the detention center, the courthouse, and all of that plays out. Across a little
Hey,
further.
Joy?
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
I'm
by all
sorry.
means.
One of the things we haven't seen yet is any protests at the federal building property in Westwood, which has always been a target for anti-war, immigration protests, and obviously this type of thing. But we haven't seen that yet, and that would create a huge problem for law enforcement. Now you're fighting a battle on two major fronts.
Right. Well, let's go back up to
Look at
Gabe
that.
Santos in
1,
Air 7,
2,
who
3,
continues to
4,
watch this section
5.
subfleet of Waymos that drew the attention and the ire of those demonstrators. Nothing left but some burning embers and melting plastic there, Gabe.
Yeah, those 5 Waymos, a complete loss here. Luckily, these Waymos are owned by the Waymo company, a subsidiary of Alphabet, and Google is a major shareholder of that company. So at the very least, we know that these aren't owned by individuals that may, struggle to get to work tomorrow. But nonetheless, we never want to see this kind of vandalism and property destruction. We have 5 vehicles on fire in the middle of a city street in the middle of downtown LA. That's not something that we want to see. As we were mentioning before, LA City Fire, they really have no reason to get involved here and get close to the scene here, because LAPD doesn't have anybody to spare to provide security for those firefighters, and they don't want to risk anything there. So the Waymo fires are pretty much self-contained at this point, and law enforcement officials are just content with letting those fires burn out and hoping that there's no more fires in that regard. But really, we'll just have to see what the night holds. But we do have these multiple kind of skirmishes and multiple kind of fronts to this protest going on right now on Los Angeles Street, where we have those Waymos on fire, and now the new kind of hotbed of activity more towards City Hall as we continue to make an orbit on the west side of downtown, and we get view of City Hall on I believe that's going to be Main Street and Los Angeles Street. It looks like this is going to be Temple and Main Street, actually, and that's where we're seeing a number of police officers reloading, and we actually heard some reports earlier that they were running low on less than lethal ammo. So there is reports that LAPD is working to get more less than lethal rounds on the scene here, so that officers can continue maintaining the
that looks like
control
ammo
of the area. But as we widen out the shot, Rob, I want to see what the situation is on the left side of the City Hall building, because we saw a lot of protesters gathering there. You see those officers on horseback on Temple and Spring Street, and as we tilt down, protesters have kind of made another barrier, if you will. And this is kind of a cat and mouse game that officers are now playing with protesters. They made a barricade, if you will, with those pink chairs and those plastic construction signs a little further down on 1st and Main, I believe. And now it appears that another one is being set up. But this is an area, let's see, you have a contingent of people on mini bikes and an ATV. I wasn't sure if those were law enforcement officers, but it does not appear to be so. And then you have somebody doing donuts here and falling over on their mini bike. So a lot going on here. A lot of protesters kind of going in a number of different directions here. And you can imagine the tactical challenge that LAPD has here, trying to maintain control of such a large area. There's multiple skirmish lines. There's multiple air units overhead. We have that LAPD air unit going through the screen. This is the intersection of Los Angeles and Temple Street. You could see that's a van from LAPD Hollywood Division. So it just goes to show you that resources from all over the LA City area are coming in here to help LAPD kind of maintain control, or what control they can of the situation here. And as we kind of just look around and pick and choose different areas, we see these different spots that law enforcement is trying to just monitor. We saw that LAPD air unit going through the shot earlier, and they were trying to guide officers into certain areas where individuals and protesters were maybe gathering and creating barricades. We see here somebody, looks like, I'm not sure if they're marking on the surface street or trying to crack the curb there. We did see videos in previous days of protesters trying to hammer out pieces of the curb and
they're gathering something.
Projectiles.
They're gathering all the stuff that's being fired onto the street for something.
Yeah, we've
Fireworks.
we've definitely seen that before.
Yeah, whatever they're doing, it looks like it's up to no good.
Yeah, I think that's certainly within reason to say, Jory. We have seen videos earlier of protesters with hammers actually chipping away at some of the sidewalks to create concrete projectiles, and that's not what LAPD wants to see. And they definitely don't want more people coming here to gather and kind of sightsee or do anything of that nature, because it's a situation that's not relatively safe, and LAPD is just trying to do their best to continue to control the situation. As you see here, it looks like one side of the 101 freeway is open and a large CHP contingent is still set up on the southbound lanes of the 101 before it connects with the East LA interchange. Yeah. So that will probably take a little bit of a ways to clear, but at least to one side of the 101 is open right now.
Gabe, it looks like that, I'm not sure, it looks like they might have just escorted that member of the media out of there, not very... it wasn't a friendly escorting out of that situation.
Yeah, they're like kicking that person out.
Anytime you're looking at a crowd like this, right, Nico, you see something moving a little faster than the rest, something's going on.
Right, that's the action.
And then they kind of pushed a woman with a camera around her neck out of that group and had her walk away.
Wow. Gabe, I had a question. You've shown us these different scenes. We looked at the protesters that had the barriers up. They kind of barricaded themselves. Next to them, we saw some protesters doing donuts. You were talking about the ones that were chipping away at the concrete with a hammer. Just all these different random scenes. It's just so hard, I can imagine, for law enforcement to keep up with the different things that are going on. But it just seems like, from the aerial views that you're showing us, that the crowd has reduced. Oh, you see more chairs?
They're on the move. If you look, just go right back on.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. They're on the move again.
It appears that more of these protesters are gathering these chairs. They're refortifying that barrier, as you said. But LAPD has their air unit overhead, and they are making a plan, if you will, to try and push back this barrier. They don't want anybody to kind of dig their heels in and get set up or get too comfortable in any one particular area. That's why you saw those LAPD units on horseback, within a matter of 10 or 15 minutes, kind of move in very quickly, start launching those rubber bullets, and really break down that earlier barrier that we saw near 1st and Main. You see this new one going up near Spring and Temple. And as we kind of pan around and look for where those mounted units are, you see just a number of skirmish lines and a number of areas that LAPD is trying to maintain control over. They are on Los Angeles Street. They're on Main Street. It's all kind of not that it's spreading out, but you had about 3,000 people here earlier, and a lot of them are kind of spreading out over a few blocks right now, whereas earlier they were kind of contained to maybe one city block or two. They're spread out over a couple different blocks right now. Not that this is engulfing the entirety of all downtown, but you do have a very large area, and LAPD, it appears, is really kind of struggling to deal with the number of protesters and how kind of widespread they are right now.
Definitely, yeah, it definitely makes it much harder when they are so widespread like that. Gabe, thank you so much. I believe we have Amy Powell joining us as well. She is on the ground giving us a look as well. And Amy, what's going on behind you? Where are you? What are you seeing? What's happening?
Nico, we are here right next to the 110 freeway along North Broadway, and we're overlooking the freeway. Of course, we can see that the southbound side of the freeway is completely shut down. We see nothing but LAPD vehicles and other emergency vehicles and official vehicles there because traffic cannot flow through this area right now. However, the northbound side is moving, but beyond that, you can see on every overpass in this area, we're looking towards Spring Street, and you get a really good view of just how many people are out here. It is amazing to me. I was out here, of course, last night by the Federal Building when this was a relatively small protest. Now we're seeing hundreds, thousands of people out here. Many of the protesters have been on the move. We were down by City Hall earlier. We saw large groups of protesters moving in that direction, but we see still a lot of people here. Some are, again, standing on the overpasses down there. We hear those pops, those bangs, the explosives from the flashbangs and other things from time to time. The crowd we're seeing right now is just standing here peacefully, kind of watching what is going on here, but it is stunning to look at all that black smoke rising from, I know you were talking about all the Waymos that have been set on fire. We can still see that black smoke rising from here. We, of course, have got police helicopters, media overhead, so much police activity here. I don't know, Will, we can take a good look down at the freeway. We see all those officers, those LAPD officers and other officers gathered down there. Again, they're trying to make sure more people don't get onto the freeway. I believe there were some people on here earlier. I can't tell beyond that bridge, the Los Angeles Street Bridge, if there are any people on the freeway. But this is just an extraordinary thing to see how many people have come out to join this protest. They're frustrated, they're angry, and this has been building. And apparently, we don't know for sure, but certainly the news of all those National Guard troops coming into the area, I don't know if that spurred more.
Sherry, Alinda, thank you so much. Very, very grateful. Thank you so much.
I want to show people on the overpass right here.
I just saw that pop up.
Flags and signs.
Very, very grateful. Thank you.
They may have been here
Thank you,
for the
Sherry.
protest. Perhaps they left, or perhaps they're keeping their distance, because that's the thing. Obviously, many of the people demonstrating down here are not here to cause
Thank you
trouble,
so
to
much,
cause confrontations
Sherry.
with the police.
I just saw
They're
that
here
pop
to voice
up.
Their anger and their frustration and their feelings that these arrests, these detentions by ICE are just something unjust that shouldn't be happening. So they're doing it peacefully. They're exercising their right to express their opinions. But again, the view here is just astonishing when you see how many people are here. I mean, this is quite the view. And across the downtown area, we just see groups of people walking around, again, standing on overpasses, anywhere they can look at this, and it's really unbelievable to see what has been going on here. So for now, things are quiet in this area, but of course, we have to see what happens next, because as we've seen many times, things are quiet and then suddenly something happens and a confrontation happens. So we'll send it back to you for now, but we'll keep an eye on things here along the 110 freeway.
Okay.
I'm looking at another feed here and kind of like
Amy,
looking at the
thank you.
situation.
It is disheartening to see parts of our city burning tonight with that smoke rising behind you. And we see some
turning signs
right
down.
now
Look,
in downtown
tearing
Los
signs
Angeles,
down.
breaking down a street sign here. Let's go from Amy to Tim Caputo, who's also on the ground and is a little bit closer to the burning cars and has been witnessing what's been going on there for the last couple hours.
They're tearing out signs.
Yeah, the cars are still burning strong out here. We haven't seen the fire department or police come really to this side of Los Angeles Street. You know, we've been talking to a lot of folks who have been coming out here today for the protest, for the demonstration, to try to get a sense of exactly why they're out here and what's been going on. With me now is Nasira Elias.
They come for the
You've
riot.
been protesting not just today, all weekend long. You said even to the first Trump administration. Why?
Yes, sir. I started protesting as soon as Trump got into administration because we could see, you know, from his verbiage and just from his agenda that he was anti-immigrant in spite of having an immigrant family. And that's huge because the United States was built by immigrants. It is great
they're bringing in more
because of immigrants. And so it doesn't make sense that they can't have a seat at the table when they're the backbone of America. They are what makes America great by their work, their effort, and they're being exploited by not being given an opportunity to amnesty, which has been over 40 years now.
You've been fighting for this for a while. What's the weekend been like for you, both emotionally and physically? What have you been doing as all this has been going on?
So 2 days ago, Los Angeles got broadsided. You know, it was just another regular day. We were aware that there were ice raids happening, but 2 days ago we got strong. They're putting out the fires. I live in Westlake, MacArthur Park, and our community was raided. The Home Depot, there were schools, you know, that were having graduations where ICE came in, and you know, we've got Paramount and a number of other cities that were attacked without, you know, any warning. And we've been seeing how people have been trying to go to their court hearings, and they still have been apprehended and detained without any due process. You know, so what we are seeing is that President Trump is basically has no respect for his citizens and for their rights.
Nasira, hang with me for just 1 second. I just want to explain something real quick here, guys.
Fire trucks are trying to get to the scene.
Tommy, take a point to our right here. The fire department has arrived here. Obviously, where we are kind of stationed is
After
a
5 fires.
intersection where your cars can't get through. Now, the fire department at the moment kind of stuck and unable to get to the cars that were burning here on Los Angeles Street. They are waiting for some of these cars
What a
ahead of
mess.
to move, and then they're going to work their way up street. They are flanked behind them by LAPD. You don't have to show it for a second, Tommy. It's all the way behind you. By several officers behind the fire department who will try to get up the street here as you see that fire burning. You see the fire burning, you've seen the fireworks out here the last couple days. Some people depict this as rioting, as unrest, as violence. What does this say to you? And I know this isn't necessarily the entire crowd, but when you see this, what do you feel?
I think that's a common propaganda, but just the last couple of days, it has really made sense how basically, you know, he came in and attacked the immigrant community and all of their loved ones, and people responded by trying to be protective, you know, in the workplaces where they were being attacked, you know, and trying to block and so forth. But what we've been seeing, and that, you know, I hope that people will understand for those of us on the ground, is that there has been more force coming in. And as I said a little while ago, he's showing that there's no respect. It's almost looking like a military state. Like, we feel helpless, we feel powerless, we feel like who do we have that that Trump can answer to? You know what I mean? And so if I'm here for like a vigil, but it also protest and so forth. But we're feeling like, you know, we want people to see what's happening, to hear, you know, hear our cries that we have rights as well. I'm the daughter of 2 immigrants from El Salvador, and so I'm here to speak up for my community and to protect them, do anything I can to let them know that they have a voice, that they have people that care about them. And so for those of us that have a voice, I ask that you would please speak up at this time, and don't let your wealth or your privilege, your American, you know, privilege choke your voice, because we need it at this time.
Nasira, thank you so much. So eloquent what you said. Thank you, and be safe out here as well. You heard it there. Nasira, daughter of immigrants, lifelong Angelino, a very elegant way of putting what she has been doing out here, not just protesting today, but why she felt it was important to be out here. When you see the fires, when you hear the fireworks, when you see that police line, you might think of just rebel rousers and people out here to commit violence. Nasira is what is out here. These are people that find this important. They want to have their voices heard, and they're coming out here with signs. They're coming out here wanting to have conversations, and they want to make sure their voices are heard. Jory, Nico?
Yeah, indeed. And again, the eyes of the world are upon our city tonight as this continues night 3 of unrest. And we look to different places, different levels, different countries. Stephen Miller, go ahead. Tim, you want to keep going?
What did they say about Stephen Miller?
No, I just wanted to point out here, because I know you probably have it from Air 7 as well, but we kind of saw this play out in Compton as well. I was just kind of laying the scene for you here as the fire department is trying to put out those Waymo cars that were set on fire while LAPD behind them trying to do a little bit of crowd control to make sure these firefighters are able to do their job. Obviously, for those first responders and firefighters, they're not involved in this in any way, but putting out a fire is paramount to them. So for them to be able to do their job in the safest way possible, that's why you're seeing now police come up on the other side, and the crowd, for the most part, that has really been packed over here for the last couple hours. Have moved across the 101 despite a handful of people like there. Somebody just threw a water bottle at Homeland Security who are pulling up behind LAPD here, but a water bottle against the side of the car, not necessarily the most violent action, but
I thought they were going at him with the finger.
What's going on out here?
I'm glad that was against someone else and not you, Tim. I thought for a
I
second
thought
that
it was
you might have
him.
been the target there.
I thought he was the target.
That happen as we watch the LAFD put out these fires, a volatile situation.
Oh, look at
ready
that!
to go.
Look at that!
Camera.
Right on camera. Right on
more
camera.
Civil unrest, and again, when
identify
we talk about
him.
Peaceful versus
That's
violent,
a federal
this is
crime.
Certainly not on the peaceful side of protest.
That's a federal crime. Right
we'll
there.
See how long these
What's his
officials
jersey
allow this
say?
to continue
J-Rock.
here. We do have LAPD officers right in the area.
That is a
as this
federal
man,
crime right there.
Twice now has hit this police vehicle with his bike and now seems to be leaving the area. And so we just want to make sure
that's a
Tim
federal
stays
crime.
safe in this situation.
Screenshot
It is
that.
volatile.
Turn it into the Fed.
We can see the white smoke now rising behind you, which is a good sign if veterans of Los Angeles know fires pretty well, Tim, and we're seeing this finally go out. And the hope is now that these fires are being put out, that this kind of puts to arrest.
He had a certain jersey
that
on.
we have seen. You know, we still see demonstrators on the street, but we don't see the
Screenshot that.
confrontations that we were
Send it
seeing
to the
hours
Fed.
ago.
Just like that guy was throwing
Joey,
rocks
I
yesterday.
think Chris Christie brought it up yesterday when he was over Compton and saying, what would happen if police just went home? And this is kind of a peculiar decision by Homeland Security to pull up, pull away this way, some not so nice remarks on that sign, but Homeland Security to pull up on this road where they essentially can't move up any further into this crowd. They're not focused on LAPD, those protesters, the guy who threw the water bottle and slammed his bike against the back of the Homeland Security truck. He wasn't necessarily having an issue with the LAPD, it was Homeland Security. So for those agents to drive up essentially a dead-end street where they can't move and get stuck here in the middle of the crowd, I'm not saying that's wrong, but the presence often is a provocation in itself. And I think for some of the folks out here, just seeing those federal agents, seeing Homeland Security, ICE, FBI, whomever it is kind of a willpower to them to do something in response. You saw LAPD, you see them behind me there. Nobody's bothering them. They're trying to protect the firefighters up there at the front of the street. It's just when Homeland Security pulled up 3 or 4 vans in a row, it elicited that response. They didn't do anything to that guy on the bike. But again, the presence alone often causes that provocation. So it's this awkward stalemate where you have police presence that angers an already angry crowd. Obviously, police can't just go away because you have a crowd that is shown to be potentially violent, but it's this back and forth that is almost uncontrollable in the sense that more police that show up, the more riled up the crowd gets, and then it goes back and forth until, we hit a point like we did last night where it just gets completely out of control.
If you're ICE, if you're the Trump administration, you believe this is a righteous cause. You believe that this is an important thing that will actually make things safer. On the flip side, you see the demonstrators saying, how is this possibly a safer situation for our city than where we were before? Again, I was talking about the eyes of the country on our city tonight. Tim, we'll get back to you in just a moment. Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff to the President of the United States, writing today, we have been saying this for years. This is a fight to save civilization. Anyone with eyes can see that now. Certainly no stranger to inflammatory, at times veering into offensive speech is Stephen Miller. He writes about seeing different countries' flags as we're watching chunks of rock and concrete hurled onto the 101 freeway and those California Highway Patrol vehicles below. Stephen Miller writing, look at all the foreign flags.
Another
Los
thing
Angeles
is
can't
occupied
territory.
open that up because people might throw
said in
stuff
several
off the 101.
other posts that the presence of flags of other countries, rather than being people being proud of their heritage and where they come from, rather is a foreign invading force that is now occupying Los Angeles. Again, we see violence being meted out by demonstrators here. Sometimes it's unmanned. These vehicles from the CHP have been posted on the 101 freeway for several hours now, and you see the scooters there lying beside them. They have been hurled from the overpasses down onto those vehicles below, the barricades, the signs. That sign that was ripped out, we saw a little
They
bit
ripped
ago,
the
looks like
sign
it's laying
out.
next to that vehicle.
Look at
and
that.
a scooter laying in the windshield.
And those are very heavy, those Lime scooters. So just imagine the force when it came down from that overpass onto that police vehicle. You can imagine the damage that it's caused. But going back to what Tim said a little bit earlier, it really makes you think, these protesters, what they're thinking. But one point that I feel like is really important is that a lot of these protesters, unfortunately, they've kind of just grouped all of these law enforcement entities together. So Homeland Security, LAPD, and the other forces, they've kind of just grouped them. So that's why a lot of them, they are hurling their anger towards them. They don't really care who it is, if it's Homeland Security or LAPD. They just want to just attack.
Yeah, they
whatever.
see it's authority.
Right.
It's a
Right.
backlash against authority, and when you feel like your community is under attack, as many of these crowds do, they
doesn't
turn
matter.
to
Right.
exactly whatever authority is on scene right there. And law enforcement is law enforcement. They are there to do their jobs. They want to do their job, return home safely to their family tonight.
Right.
You know, they don't want to have to fight. They want to maintain the peace. And we've seen them confronted and provoked all day long. I think in large part, every agency we have seen has done a great job showing restraint, trying to de-escalate the situation, because as all these officials have said, even the ones who are champions of the rights of those who are demonstrating today, you cannot turn to violence. You cannot turn to chaos. And so law enforcement is doing their best to maintain order and control and peace in the face of some very tough situations playing out.
Because even like right now, looking at everything going on, I mean, we really don't get anywhere with this kind of destruction and this anger. I understand people are upset, but this doesn't take us anywhere. The message isn't spread across the correct way this way. And I also understand, I'm sure a lot of the protesters, it angered them. The 2,000 National Guard troops that were deployed, it makes you think, was that another thing that kind of sparked the anger? So while they were there, they saw these troops, it really just brought it out of them, the anger. So I don't know if those troops will, what's going to happen with those troops, if they will continue to be here, but I'm sure their presence has definitely angered a lot of people. They're angrier than what they were before they were deployed.
Right. Can we go back up to Gabe Santos? Is he ready to go up in Air 7? Let's see what's going on. We see some movement of some LA.
So we got about one more hour
so
to it gets
Grand
dark.
Arena. We saw some folks removing those chairs, kind of refortifying their line. What are you seeing now?
City Hall.
Yeah, as we move Air 7 around this other building here,
City Hall.
just on the west side of City Hall, we could see there that fortified barricade that we've seen with those pink chairs that have been put in place there. And as we get a little bit of a better view there, you could see it now spans
Looks like they're
the
looking
entire
for a
length
standoff.
of Spring Street. And well, yeah, you can see
look at this.
20 or so of those pink chairs being
What
used
the
as
heck?
a barricade, and those
Pink
protesters
chairs.
now, standing behind those barricades.
Look.
And now we see some of that less than lethal fire from LAPD. LAPD has not tolerated the
LAPD
presence
firing
of
at
any sort of,
Get out of the street.
you know, fixed barricades or anything like
Get
that.
out of the
They
street.
don't want anybody
Disperse.
to really dig their heels in, so to speak, and post up at any one specific location, especially using shields or anything of that nature, because as soon as that happens, LAPD knows that that could lead to something a little more serious, and is definitely something that is more difficult to deal with the more a barricade, a literal barricade like this, gets fortified. If there's any more of these chairs or any more construction.
What in the heck? So we're showing different feeds here. Look at this. Fire department finally putting out the fires, right? Those 5 vehicles that caught on fire. And now it looks like over at City Hall. Now, where is the fire department? Yeah, they're there. The fire department's there. Fire department's finally putting out the fires. 2 hours later. But it looks like they're preparing for some sort of standoff out front of City Hall. when they're putting up those pink chairs. Folks, we have 1 hour till it gets we got 1 hour till it gets dark. Y'all, I'm surprised the LA Fire Department's not getting like harassed or attacked. All right, so fire's going out. Well, what's going to come of this in the next hour and beyond? They got the mark. They got the band. Dun, 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 dun. Chaos in the streets of Los Angeles. Now what's going on here? Los Angeles Street. So it looks like they're putting out those fires. We got all types of skirmishes going on.
Yeah, Yeah. It's okay. I guess people are on some building.
A little bit earlier when these protesters created these barricades, these barriers with these tables, and I think this is the first time that we've seen it with the benches.
This is outside City Hall.
I don't think the other
Look at this.
barricaded area even had these benches, but we saw the police officers did come toward them with the horses, and I think that is them. It's kind of hard to tell because it's zoomed out, but I think
we got officers shooting at these barricades
right there.
I
don't believe these
chairs.
are the horses, though.
No, the horses are just on the catty corner in this intersection.
Okay. Because when they start coming toward them with the horses, that's when we see those barricaded areas start dispersing. So we'll see when they make that move. But as of right now, the protesters have barricaded themselves behind those chairs.
In the meantime, Governor Newsom is observing the situation. He's posted several tweets this afternoon and this evening, writing, Trump is trying to manufacture a crisis in LA County, deploying troops not for order, but to create chaos. Don't take the bait. Never use violence or harm law enforcement. Less than an hour ago, the governor wrote, despite protests already being managed by the LAPD, President Trump is escalating the situation by threatening to deploy roughly 500 active duty Marines to the streets of Los Angeles.
Marines.
He writes, Los Angeles, remain peaceful. Don't fall into the trap that extremists are hoping for. And that 500 active duty Marines threat was first put out by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and is now being repeated by President Trump, saying he will do whatever he needs to do to maintain law and order. By and large, that is not something that a president can do. You cannot turn U.S. troops against U.S. citizens on U.S. soil unless you're using the Insurrection Act. Is this grounds to use the insurrection? Could under any circumstances, legal,
I think so, yes.
moral, could this be deemed an insurrection against the United States?
This is where I would love if we had a legal expert to be here and answering the questions for us, because that is such a good point. And I'm curious, I mean, is that the next step? If it's not the National Guard is here, but the next step after the National Guard, is it the Marines? And does it stop there? Does he deploy the Army, Navy, Air Force? What's the step? I mean, this just seems everything is so out of order and
Well, in Trump's
I say yeah.
He elicited hopes and desires to use weaponry against U.S. citizens.
Evergreen, thank you.
Famous day in Washington, D.C. when the president wanted to walk
Evergreen.
The grounds to the church through Lafayette Park to the nearby church there, and wanted U.S. troops to be on the ground to shoot at the legs of demonstrators who were outside the White House. And so he has expressed a desire to fire upon using U.S. military means against U.S. citizens, which would be wildly against anything written in our Constitution and our laws. And again, now there is an open threat from the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense to do exactly that, using an Insurrection Act that looks like it does not have the grounds to be used here. I'm sure there will some that will call this an insurrection, but we're talking legal grounds. Does the President, in this instance, have the legal grounds to declare this an insurrection against the United States and deploy U.S. military troops against U.S. citizens, which is strictly forbidden by the U.S. Constitution?
It will be really interesting to see how this is all going to unfold, if that's going to happen. Looking back outside, live back at downtown L.A., we have that aerial view and still showing the protesters going strong, 7:04 this evening. There is some good news here. You can see on the screen. So that looks like a live picture. So the fire department is there. We had those 3 Waymo cars on fire. And we had 5 Waymo cars, on fire. And it looks like from that white smoke, they have taken care of that. So that was successful. Let's just hope that we don't see any more EV fires like what we saw there, anything else that the fire department has to get involved. But what is this? We're seeing some more.
This is the remnants of the Waymos.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow.
Right. Nothing left but all the plastic is now melted. A lot of the metal is likely melted as well. That's something we observed in the fires in January, is that these things
Thank
get
you,
so
Savika.
hot that it
Thank
just
you.
starts melting the aluminum and the metals therein. There was actually
Thank you, metal.
an alert
Thank
sent
you.
out by the LAPD today warning about the air quality because of these fires. It says that from LAPD Central Division, a traffic advisory to media partners, demonstrators, and others who may enter the area of Los.
All right, so we still got, it's still popping. It's still going on. We have less than an hour to it get dark. We got somebody here arrested. We got another arrest. I've seen dozens and dozens of arrests. There might be over 50 arrests. Oh, they're marching. They're marching. Police are marching. We are live.
Perfect, bro.
Back. Move. Back. 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 Move. Thank you, Jeff, for the gifted membership. Thank you. Move. Move back. Brady, thank you. Look at all the graffiti. Hear a lot of sirens, a lot of things going on. Helicopters in the sky. Are they going to declare the Insurrection Act? A lot of those vehicles got vandalized right there.
Benches and chairs that are stacked up in the middle of the road.
So what we have here is
Continuing
horses
from the article.
mounted
Right.
up.
Okay. I think we're shortly going to have to excuse Gabe to go refill with Air 7. We do have other eyes in the sky that we will continue to watch what's happening. But this is, I think, the largest gathering of people we have seen at this hour now outside.
It's building
Grand
up
Park
out
and
front of
LA
City
It's
Hall.
where we saw at 2 o'clock, almost more than 5 hours ago, what it was the second demonstration of this day outside City Hall. That was a large gathering, more than 1,000 people. The entire park there on the left and the street was completely filled with people. They appeared to walk around down the block and join the other gathering that was happening at the federal complex. which has been the site of unrest for the last
Right.
3 nights.
There were thousands of protesters out here. And right now, just looking at this crowd, you're right, this is the largest crowd that we have seen in the last hour. And if this is that barricaded, the chairs and the benches that we looked at about 15, 20 minutes ago, this has grown significantly. A little bit earlier, I think there were probably 2 or 3 rows of people behind those that barricaded area. But now it has seemed to really grown. I'd say at least hundreds.
They
of
can
people
plow right through there.
Table, or
really,
those
literally,
chairs
and disperse this crowd quickly if they wanted to.
We have a new.
They can do it easy.
We have a new post from President Trump, who continues to call the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, writing, Governor Gavin Newsom and, quote, Mayor Bass should apologize to the people of Los Angeles for the absolutely horrible job that they have done. And this now includes the ongoing LA riots. These are not protesters. They are troublemakers and insurrectionists. That is a keynote that he's using that term. Remember, no masks, he writes. And then 3 minutes later, he posted paid insurrectionists. Okay, so why is that so significant? We were talking about it a little
Insurrection
earlier.
Act.
Insurrectionists, in order
Insurrection
to deploy
Act.
U.S. military troops onto the streets of the United States against citizens of the United States, the president
He said
would
in the
have to invoke
military.
the Insurrection Act. This is hundreds of years old. What is an insurrection? It's obviously a movement against the government, against the United States itself. Could this be viewed, what's happening in our city, be viewed as an insurrection against the United States? If the president here is using that term, he's calling these people insurrectionists. Is that a movement? Is that a move by the president to employ U.S. military on the streets of our country?
And it makes you just wonder, like, okay, are the Marines the next step? Like he said that he wanted to deploy a little bit earlier. And when? How soon will we see those? Did he say 500 Marines? We'll be seeing 500 active duty Marines. And these are military members. They're active duty. They don't think about getting assigned to anywhere domestic. I mean, they're deploying these men and women all around the world, but deploying them to California for this reason, I'm sure it's something that they were not expecting either.
Right. It's a bit chilling, actually, when you think about the possibility.
Oh, there's Gavin
of
Newsom
the US military moving against United States citizens.
Looks
in
like
the
the
United States.
LAPD.
Here's that photo of the governor with Jim McDonald there, Sheriff Robert Luna, and other members of law enforcement gathered in Los Angeles just a short time ago. The governor posting to Twitter and citing joined LAPD, LASD, and state emergency officials in Los Angeles as we respond to protests provoked by chaos from Washington. We're here to keep the peace, not play into Trump's political games. And on the flip side of that, we hear from the president of the United States, who are calling those on the streets rioters and insurrectionists. Those are, this is, you can say what you will about the unrest and the violence. This is, it's hard to call this a riot. First of all, that we've seen some burning cars, and we have seen
whoa, it is a riot.
LA knows riots.
Come on,
ABC7.
Come on.
Questionable whether this is a riot. Okay, that's fine. He calls it a riot. But to call these people insurrectionists, just I feel like
kind of
opens the door.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty chilling to think about what that could mean. And I was talking earlier with Tim Caputo about what, he had the burning cars behind him and what this looks like with the country and the world looking at what's happening in our country. And so we have Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass blaming today's unrest and the weekend's unrest on the Trump administration and their actions. On the flip side, I was asking, who looks bad when the country looks at this situation and sees our city on fire, or at least cars in our city on fire? And we go back to Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller's Twitter feed. He is reposting ones calling this Democrat management. So who looks bad? He's saying that the Democrats. Another post. Let's check in on how the LAPD's management of the protests is going, and it's a car on fire. So again, the LAPD, Democratic leadership in the city, in the state, is being used as a focal point for those who are opposed to those in charge here, saying this falls on the Democrats, this falls on Governor Newsom, and this falls on LA Mayor Karen Bass.
Definitely not a good look, and I'm sure.
Look, they're throwing things at the vehicle.
Going for either the message that a lot of them are trying to get
They're
across.
throwing. Stuff at
looking back
LAPD
outside,
vehicle.
this is 101.
Or
So
highway
101 is
patrol.
still
That's
blocked
highway
off.
patrol.
I don't recall if it's northbound or south. It's northbound.
This is southbound.
This is southbound. This is southbound that is still blocked. We can see the northbound side getting through, but southbound still blocked, and we have a number of those police vehicles there, and they haven't moved. It's been blocked for, I'd say, 3
hours.
Hours.
And the real danger here is that the northbound side to the left is open.
Right.
The people who are throwing these things off this overpass onto the vehicles below, thankfully, have not turned their ire to the cars that are moving by. That could change in an instant.
Well, you don't know. I think some have gotten hit.
Abhorrent to see what they are doing. Looking at what the state of the 101 freeway is here, littered with scooters, a bicycle, debris, rock, cement that have been hurled off this overpass onto these vehicles below. But, you know, as bad as this looks, it could get even worse with those cars driving by on the northbound side. So how long this is going to be allowed to continue? There are vehicles under the protection of the overpass that are not being hit. Where are those officers right now? Where are the CHP officers that drove these vehicles onto the freeway who have now left them here? I don't think they can access them. They would need some kind of police escort to clear these people from the surrounding overpasses, because they would find themselves under assault as their vehicles have been for hours now.
It's terrifying just thinking that looking at the damage on their cars, knowing that there could have been a police officer inside that unit when they threw that lime scooter, but luckily, and we just saw something else get thrown at that vehicle as well. Luckily, we think that those officers are not there.
Right.
So yeah, that's another question. Where are those officers? And when they come back to their cars, they really just have to be careful. They have to have some sort of escort. But Dory, that's a really good point. I wasn't even thinking about the northbound side and those drivers. They're fine right now. They're fine. But thinking if this escalates even more, I mean, their safety is at risk as well.
So CNN is reporting tonight that California Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis says there will likely be a lawsuit filed tomorrow challenging President Trump's decision to federalize those National Guard troops in Los Angeles. So the governor of California is moving for the president to rescind that order, and now the lieutenant governor says there will be a lawsuit filed tomorrow trying to undo that move by President Trump to federalize the California National Guard members. Again, from a PR perspective, who's coming out looking better here? The president says he wants law and order and is doing whatever he can to gain that, and says there are California National Guardsmen and women who are here who can do this. I'm federalizing them. I want peace. You have the governor and the lieutenant governor now fighting that order, obviously on grounds of legal challenges.
Right.
Both sides want peace, but in the eyes of the nation and the world, who comes out on top in that dispute?
Right. It's become a clash. Unfortunately, this
What do you think, folks?
Become a clash
Who comes
of
out on
powers
top?
between not only the government and the federal level, but also protesters as well. So they're mixed in the middle of all of this.
Right. Okay. So as we sit on this shot, I wonder if
we got about a half hour till it gets dark.
Back over
the
to
sun
what's
goes
playing
down.
out just a short ways away in front of City Hall.